Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Game Informer Show. I'm your host, Ben Hansen, joined by the great Jeff Marchiafava.
Hey!
We call him Jeff'em for short because we love him.
Sure do.
We got Brian Shea.
I'm particularly less loved.
Brian P. Shea. We call him P for short because we're lukewarm on him like P. Then we... sorry.
That was good. That was good. Keep it going. Keep it going.
All right, Suriel Vasquez.
Hi! I don't know how much you guys love me yet.
You're A-okay.
All right.
We have a jam-packed show. So with this show, this is kind of like we're representing both sides of the yin and the yang. We have the dark side and the light. First half of the show, all upbeat,
That's
light,
right.
There you go.
fun, colorful games. Then around the midpoint, we're getting dark. We're bringing in a new crew talking about Call of Duty World War II, Little Nightmares, What Remains of Edith Finch, a ton of stuff. Then we have great emails. Then after that, we are going back to Andromeda, Suriel.
Is that light or dark?
Gosh, that's a real good question. This is our final episode of the Game Club for Mass Effect Andromeda. Somebody dropped out. Who is it?
Oh, it's like Survivor.
This
We'll
is the
find
most
out.
suspenseful I've ever been on this podcast.
Hell yeah. But it's a fun chat. So we talk about the ending to Mass Effect Andromeda, so obviously spoilers, but that's at the far back half of the show, so don't worry about that. All right, but to kick things off, we're talking about some great games. Let's talk about the Nintendo Switch. People are winding up their time with Legend of Zelda. What do they turn to, Brian Shea?
Apparently Puyo Tetris.
All right, Puyo Tetris. That's what Jeff'em reviewed here.
Yeah.
You played it a while ago. This is, if you don't know Puyo, the best description is, do you remember Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine on the Genesis? That was a weird Americanized version of this Japanese Tetris, roughly-esque game called Puyo.
A little bit like Dr. Mario, if that's a better touchstone.
A little bit. Not exactly Dr. Mario rules. And so this new game from Sega, it's out on PS4 and Switch. It combines Tetris and Puyo in every way imaginable and every way that you can't possibly imagine. How is it, Jeff'em?
Sure. It is okay.
That's where you're wrong.
Yeah!
No. Did you like it more than I did?
I really did like it. I love this game a lot. I love having it on the Switch. I am a Tetris hound, as Jeff'em knows from the frequent battles that we had where I just trounced him.
Mm-hmm.
Tears welling in
one
his
match.
eyes.
Yeah.
The one brutal match. But I love having a great competitive version of Tetris on the go with the Switch. The ability to like set up the dumb little Switch stand. The beautiful little Switch stand, get those Joy-Cons out and just have a great head-to-head Tetris competitive match anywhere is great.
Exactly. Yes.
And?
Is that something that you have never done before?
No, but I feel like every recent version of Tetris has just been bastardized in some weird way. Ubisoft had it, EA had it, now Sega has this license for the weird fusion.
And
but
they are back to average.
For Tetris, but average Tetris is still the greatest game ever made.
And that's exactly what I said in my review, that if you're just looking for Tetris or Puyo, because there are fans of that too, if you're just looking for that on your new console, stop reading and go out and get it, because that core is still there and it's as responsive as you want it to be. It's as fast and it's still just as fun as it was 25 years ago.
So what's wrong with this package?
What's wrong is, and I think you probably agree with me on this for the most part, that the new modes that they add aren't as fun as the kind of classic stuff, or I would say some of the other modes in either separate Tetris games or Tetris or separate Puyo installments. Because every game adds some kind of new, weird modes. But these, for the most part, I didn't enjoy as much.
It's a lot of novelty stuff. They obviously have the fusion mode where
because
they're
they're trying to mix the two games together, which to me they feel like very different games,
despite looking roughly similar.
Yes, yeah. The pace of them is different, and what you're trying to do, because I think we've all played so much Tetris that you don't really think of it as a puzzle game anymore. I mean, it's not
a reflex game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't really have to be a genius to figure out which spots go in the holes or how to line up a Tetris.
Yeah.
But for Puyo, it's a completely different story, because you have to set up these long kind of chains that you'll match 3 of them and then they'll drop another one down, and it kind of you have to create this cascade through it. And so that means putting all the different pieces in very specific spots, and that takes more time and it takes more mental energy. And so when they're trying to mix the two two game modes together, especially in fusion mode, where you're using both Puyos and Tetris blocks at the same time. It just kind of becomes this mess that doesn't really speak to either of the game's skills or strategies.
I agree it's not the best mode, especially when it gets like the large Puyo Puyos in there. But again, that's just one mode. And there are fun ways that they combine them where they have a certain mode where it'll make you play Puyo Puyo, and then you'll have
Swap
a Tetris
mode.
game. Yes, and it'll swap back and forth between those. And that is great.
As I said in my review, that is
I don't read those.
That's right. That is my favorite one because you're not, explicitly mixing the two, like one person isn't playing Tetris and the other one's playing the other one, or you're kind of jumping between the two. And so that makes it kind of novel and fun to go from the Tetris mindset to the Puyo Puyo mindset and back and forth. So that one I think works really well. The Big Bang one where you kind of have set puzzles that you're going through. The Puyo Puyo one is fun because that does actually feel like more of a puzzle. They'll give you this big layout, and it's like, okay, where do I have to drop this one in order to set off the whole chain reaction? The Tetris one is just reflexes again of, okay, put 5 L shapes into the L spot, on each side, and there's no replay value in that after you play 1 or 2 matches of that.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my overall feeling. I like, all the customization, it's a very pretty incarnation.
Great soundtrack. It's got all the best Tetris songs.
Yeah, it takes, the classic Russian themes and has funny, like, dramatic twists on them and things like that. I enjoyed all of that stuff. But when I, look at the other modes that it offers, I feel like most of them were a letdown. And so to me, that kind of averaged out to a 7, which is, for Tetris, it's still a great Tetris game and it's still a great Puyo Puyo, but the two of them together didn't really work for me.
How into Puyo Puyo did you get? Hang on, Serial, are you playing this as well?
Yeah, I played a little bit of it.
Okay, how good are you at Puyo Puyo?
I'm okay at it. I haven't played it nearly as much as I've played Tetris, but I like the chain stuff. I think it offers something a lot different, like you guys have said, to Tetris.
And also, it's kind of a thrill to like have to learn something new. Like, we've all played Tetris, I'd assume, for 6,000 hours. And so Puyo Puyo, it's like, okay, I need to wrap my mind around this new way of thinking about the board. And I found myself going and watching all these tutorial videos on YouTube like a real weirdo, just trying to be like, how am I supposed to think about it? Because they try and train you with a pretty weak tutorial where it's like, oh, set up ladders. It's like, okay, I just don't understand how I should be seeing this. And the best tutorial I heard is like, you hit 4, they disappear. Don't try and hit 4. Try and build blocks of 3 that have a 1 Puyo trigger.
Somewhere built in there.
And then set off the chain reactions. It's so much more about chains than Tetris is about getting Tetrises.
And there are like 8 of these games in the series out in Japan. And it's for good reason because I also really enjoyed Puyo Puyo when you were actually playing that as its own separate mode. So there's a lot there to like.
Yeah, and then there's a story mode. It's long-winded. It's got cute characters, but they just talk way too much. But you can skip that. And then I see it just as a series of challenges that are kind of fun for like incorporating new elements along the way. There we go. So solid 7.
There you go.
Tetris is still realistically the best game.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, there have been a lot of surprisingly bad incarnations of it recently, and so I'm glad that it does nail, the fundamentals and the controls.
Yeah.
The last great one I think was Tetris DS. I don't know if there's anything between then and now
That's a great question.
Stands out.
I love the first one EA put out on iPhone, but they don't sell that anymore. Now it's just some bastardized free-to-play version.
Right. Of course.
But if you're looking to break free of Tetris and play something brand new, Mario Kart 8 on the Switch.
The newest
Mario Kart
game available.
Deluxe.
Oh, there we go.
Ooh.
Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It is the all-inclusive and slightly updated port from the Wii U. This seems to still be a really good Mario Kart game.
Yeah, so I loved Mario Kart 8 when it came out on Wii U.
Prove it.
I think that the the battle mode was garbage. That was the only downfall of that version.
Because it gave you weapons, but it had you battle on the tracks.
You were just
themselves.
driving like any way you wanted to on the track. So like you're going backwards on the track, you're going like, and it's just, there's a guy coming at me. I guess I'll shoot at him.
Ooh.
Yeah, it sucked. It was real bad.
Why'd you do that, Shay?
But
Continue.
this time they completely redid the entire battle system, which is awesome.
It seems like they just threw in a bunch of classic battle arenas, right?
Well, I think there's 8 battle arenas total, and I think 4 of them are classic ones. So like there's it's called Battle Course 1 from SNES, which is just like it's kind of like square grid, square, like just in larger sizes, and just go around like different laps if you want, or meet in the middle.
Mm.
And there's like one from the DS or Mario Kart 7, and yeah, just a bunch of different ones. And then also on top of that, they also have 5 battle modes. So there's the classic balloon battle. There is Renegade Roundup, which is like an all new mode. So it's like cops and robbers kind of. So one team is like they have piranha plants, like the piranha plant power up that like reaches out and grabs nearby enemies. And you drive around and you try to capture the other team. And if you catch them with the piranha plant, they go into jail somewhere on the map. And the team that's like the renegades that are trying to run away they're trying to avoid the cops at the same time as if like, you know, there's 4 people on your team in the jail, you can go and free them.
This sounds great.
Can
it's
people
great,
in the
yeah.
jail do anything? Can they, like,
no,
get
they're
out
just
for
stuck.
good behavior?
They're done.
Oh, look, at Monopoly, can you do anything, Cyril, when you're in jail?
That's true.
But
Just
so it's
feel
kind of
your
cool,
shame.
like the
It's like
strategy
jail's a
of
bad
like,
place.
all right, there's one guy left on like the renegade team. We can just guard the jail, but at the same time, you're in Mario Kart, so it's not like you can just like plant yourself and then like, oh well, here comes a guy, because like, you know, you can drive super erratically and like swerve around them, and you have to build up momentum in order to have any type of like effective pursuit. So it's like. It's interesting to like think of like different ways to guard the jail, like once it gets down to like only a few
Is this
things.
mode the secret star of this port? If people have already played the Wii U version, if you haven't, this is just great Mario Kart all around. But if you have played that old version, is this worth getting the Switch version for?
The battle mode is great. I think that Renegade Roundup is awesome. There's also Shine Thief and Bob-omb Blast, which come back from Double Dash, and then Coin Runners, which comes back from Mario Kart Wii.
Hang on, wait. Are you looking at notes?
He's got a
course I
cheat
am.
sheet.
Are you cheating for
I want to make
Bob-omb
sure
Blast?
that I am providing the most thorough coverage
I
on
appreciate
your
it.
podcast.
No,
Ben
I
Hansen.
appreciate it. This is our podcast.
So my favorite is actually Bob-omb Blast, because it's just like classic balloon battle, only you like every item is replaced by bombs.
Oh God.
So and you can bank up to like 10 of them, I think. So you can just like collect 10 bombs and then just go on a rampage throwing bombs everywhere.
No.
So
That sounds great.
it's pretty cool. And there's also new characters, male and female Inklings. Dry Bones comes back. Good old Dry Bones.
He always comes back.
Male or female bones.
Well, they're dry, so it's kind of hard to tell.
And this also has all the DLC.
Yeah, all the
which-
DLC from the other ones. So there's 42 characters total.
That's crazy.
48 racetracks.
That's amazing.
That's
And those DLC tracks for Mario Kart 8 on the Wii U were so good. That's where they added like the Hyrule stuff, all these novelty courses.
Excite Bike, which is one of my favorites. Like it's so simple, but it's so much fun.
How is it just to have this great game on the go?
It's really cool. Like I'm going on a flight this weekend, and I'm totally going to just be Mario Karting the whole way there.
Here's the crucial question.
Okay.
So you can play 4 players on one tiny Switch screen, portable, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, it's going to be tough and very small. Does it have like a shared cart functionality? Like if you just buy this, can you... Well, wait a minute. I guess it's basically the same. But do you know if there's any sort of weird shared
I don't
cart
think
thing?
so. I think it's just
Okay.
like if you want to play on multiple Switches, you just have to have multiple games.
Right.
But like
Okay.
you can play split screen on one, obviously.
And so you can play like with 4 players, 2 people on one screen, 2 people on the other screen. This sounds fantastic.
It's great, yeah, and I mean, it does. You don't feel like you lose a whole lot by using just like the Joy-Con like by itself without the grip.
Yeah.
And it's pretty simple controls, just like every other Mario Kart game. And you can also the holding 2 power-ups at once also returns from Double Dash.
Really?
Yeah, so that's kind of cool. Like you can bank one, and
It seems like everybody loves Double Dash. I always had a negative taste in my mouth about that game because I think like GameSpot, which we used to follow so much back in the day, they didn't like it. I think they gave it like a 6 or something crazy. But it's interesting that they're bringing back all these elements from Double Dash. It just seems like that has grown into such a fan favorite at this point.
it's not my favorite. Like I'm not a huge Double Dash fan, but I definitely like certain elements they have from that, like the 2 power-ups and the different battle modes they yanked from that game.
What's your favorite Mario Kart?
I think just from nostalgia perspective, it's got to be Mario Kart 64.
Correct.
And everybody says this, but realistically, Mario Kart 8 is the best Mario Kart
I think
experience
so.
you're going to have. Like, come on. Nostalgia, forget about it.
I think so.
I was reading an old interview this weekend talking about the origins of Mario Kart. Apparently, it started as F-Zero multiplayer, but then they could not get that running fast enough. So with the amount of like landscape they could cover in a multiplayer course, they're like, this needs to be like a small circuit like arena instead of like a sprawling racetrack like F-Zero.
And not super fast.
Right. So what works for that? Oh, of course, Nintendo design philosophy. Let's make them karts.
There you go.
It's a fun idea. Jeff, do you like Mario Kart?
I do. Big fan.
Do you own a Switch?
No, I do not. So
boy.
I won't be
Not
playing
that
that.
big a fan, I guess.
Would you ever buy a Switch?
Yeah, we'll see how the lineup shapes out.
All right. Real quick, Shay, super quick. City Skylines out on Xbox One now?
Yeah.
You said it controls well in controller.
I think so. Like that when they announced that, I was super concerned. They announced it like a year and a half ago. Like it took forever for them to bring this version out.
And then they've just been staring at an Xbox One controller like, oh Christ, what have we done?
Yeah.
Oh, SimCity's so hard on the controller.
But it works surprisingly well. Like I think it's my preferred method, even though like
What? Really?
Yeah, like I'm not a big PC gamer though, so your mileage may vary there, but I really like how intuitive the controller feels. I think that it's nice to they mapped it out nicely like on a hot bar on the bottom, and then like you use the D-pad to navigate that, and then you use the analog stick to select and place things, and then go into the screen using like a wheel menu. Kind of like a weapon wheel, only it's like an economy and
except it's boring.
Almost just as cool.
No, but City Skylines is a great game. I know it was popular on PC, but it's exciting for the console crowd to dive into this. Seem to capitalize on everything SimCity 2013 missed on, except for the soundtrack.
And the only bummer is that it does not have the added expansions aside from After Dark, which was like the day-night cycle and like different like district stuff.
Yeah,
but like. There's like no snowfall, or the upcoming natural disasters expansion isn't on it. But other than that, like it's a really great package. There's no like extreme technical hiccups. Like every once in a while when like something happens, like you'll get like a drop in frame rate for like, a second.
Sure.
But it's nothing significant.
And what about Rock Band VR? We talked to Alex Rogopoulos a couple weeks ago on this show, and he was still pretty cagey about it. Is it worthwhile?
I think if you're a Rock Band fan, it's pretty fun. Like it's,
okay.
I definitely prefer the like the classic Rock Band style. Like the gameplay is completely different. Like the core gameplay anyway.
And does the core gameplay, is it more fun, more nuanced, anything?
I would say it's definitely a very different approach. Like it's all improvisation based, and then so you're in VR, so they remove like the HUD of like the note highway coming up the middle.
It seems like a crucial part to the Rock Band
That
experience.
is, yeah. So instead, like, you're up on stage in a first person perspective. You can look over and see your bandmates, look out onto the crowd, which is kind of cool. And then like above the crowd, there's like kind of like a sideways note highway.
It's like the singing track.
Yeah, almost. And so like they give you suggestions like based on what level you're playing. So like sometimes it's just like, all right, well, here are some suggestions for what you can play. Then you go up a level and it's like, here's where you should change chord shapes, because that's when the song changes like its chord. And then there's another one where it's just like, here is everything that you should play, and it's fine. It's like
here's a genuine question. I mean this.
Okay.
Like, look within yourself. At any point when you were playing Rock Band VR, did you think like, I'm cool, like I'm living this exotic lifestyle? This crowd wants to be me or be with me.
I'm wearing a
hotbed.
stupid Oculus Rift headset.
Okay, so you never got into it on that core level.
totally got into the songs more. Like it's a lot easier to get into the songs. Like Everlong by Foo Fighters came on. I love that song, and it was like super easy for me to just like have my head, like I just feel my neck instantly moving and like my foot tapping, and maybe I'm holding the guitar a little bit more stylishly or whatever, but like, it's better. It's a lot more immersive than when you're sitting on the couch staring at a TV.
Yeah, right on.
And it is cool, but like, you look over at your bandmates and they look like Chuck E. Cheese animatronics, and you look out on the crowd and like they only have a few different animations that they can do. So it's, they didn't really take advantage of like the perfect first person. Like this is going to sound really weird. The perfect first person implementation of like the rock and roll game simulator is totally Guitar Hero Live. Like they give you interesting things to look at everywhere, and like your bandmates are running around actually like taking advantage of all the space on the stage. Like this
looking at you saying, you're doing it.
Yeah,
you're
like
doing
it's
it.
campy.
Or you're not doing it.
Yeah.
It's campy and it's fun, but like at the same time, it doesn't go extreme one way or the other.
Yeah.
And it's like boring, which is weird of me to say because I'm a huge Rock Band fan and I think VR is pretty cool technology, but it gets kind of boring being up on stage and like just looking over and just seeing, all right, well, the singer's just kind of standing there and like moving a little bit while they sing.
Well, hey, Serial Vasquez.
Hi.
I've waited here for you. I want you to talk about Deformers and Marvel vs. Capcom.
All right.
Which do you want to start with?
Let's talk about Deformers. That'll be, I think.
Sure. So this is a fascinating project, at
Yeah.
least if you've been following the podcast for a while. It's from Ready at Dawn, who we talked to a while ago. Who
full disclosure, it is published by Game Trust, who's part of GameStop.
That is a crucial detail.
But
it is made by Ready at Dawn, who most recently made The Order.
Yeah.
And they're shifting.
This is the natural follow-up.
It's bizarre. They're shifting more into multiplayer stuff.
Yeah.
In that interview we had on the podcast a while ago, they're like, Order isn't dead. We're shifting into multiplayer. Wink, wink. So take that as what you will. But they're also making Lone Echo, the VR game. Mm-hmm. And this is their... I don't know, gang beasts, physicsy, fighting.
I think the best analog is probably Rocket League. I think.
Really? Why is that?
Well, for one, it straight up has soccer in it, where one of its 3 modes is just here's a ball that drops, you're a bunch of little blobs, and you have to push the soccer ball into the goal.
Okay.
And so it also has deathmatch and team deathmatch. So it controls mostly like Rocket League. You're a small little object, and you can pick whatever. There's a ton of little shapes. Like you can be just imagine like one of the like a squishy toy that is like a ball that has like legs that looks like a bear, and if you go look up online footage,
Jeff, please calm down over there. I know you're excited.
I played most of the game as a stack of pancakes with eyes.
Oh,
and
they were good looking pancakes.
They were great looking pancakes.
The game actually does look really nice.
Yeah, it looks really nice. But so just to use the Rocket League analogy, one of the things that I'm not a super Rocket League fan. I'm not super into it as much as other people, but
nobody's perfect.
One of the things I always fumbled with was I always felt like a klutz all the time when I was playing that game, just because the ball in the matches that I played, the ball would fall in one corner and there'd be like 4 cars jumping at it and they would all just tumble over each other. And it felt really imprecise and clumsy to me. Obviously, most people disagree. But the thing that I like about this is that it makes it easier for me to actually play the game because it feels a lot stickier, is the way I described it in my review, where when you can just grab the ball with one of the shoulder buttons, and you can just play football and carry it all the way to the end of the field.
Is that the star mode in your eyes? Because
no,
the whole thing is just like punching each other.
So
right?
It has basically 4 matchmaking options. It has any, team deathmatch, and form ball. So I usually went to the any, and it kind of mixes all 3 of the modes. So there is not kind of like a main mode, but I would say team deathmatch is I think the one with the most people in it. And in that mode, it is sort of like an arena-based shooter where everyone falls on the field from the sky.
Just say like Drawn to Death.
Yeah, like Drawn to Death. Like everyone's marquee multiplayer title of the year, Drawn to Death. Everyone just falls on the arena, and they all just start kind of rolling around. And your main attack is you hold the right trigger to charge up a ram, and then when you let go, you charge. And so if you hit someone with it, they bounce off.
You know what it's like? It's like that Mario Party minigame where everyone's balancing on the balls, and you're on top of that cliff top plateau
exactly
thing.
Like that.
It's that made into a full physicsy.
Right.
Brawler.
It's a little more It's a little more nuanced than that. I know how much you love that game with the characters running on the balls, but so you can block by turning yourself into like a cube, and if someone collides with you, if someone rams you when you're in that cube, they'll take damage. And there are different classes. Like there's a guardian whose shield will deal more damage, but he's bigger, so he's easier to hit. There's a marksman who can shoot pellets. I mean, every class can shoot pellets, but the marksman gets more ammo and can fire more quickly. There's like a jack of all trades class, and then you can grab opponents, which doesn't really do much except for prevent people from blocking all the time. And there are power-ups around the field, and so like one of them will give you sort of a burst of energy that's sort of like a shotgun blast. So what I like about this is that you don't need to be as precise as you were in Rocket League, because it's when you hit someone, it kind of locks in a little bit. It's a little stickier, like I said, and then you just bounce off. But there's some cool strategies, like if you fall off the stage, it's very easy to get back on. So you'll get sort of like Smash Brothers, where you get knocked off the stage and you have a double jump, and then you can charge back in.
So is this good? What'd you end up giving this thing?
I gave it a 7 out of 10, just because my
classic Puyo Puyo.
Yeah, it's about as good as Puyo. The things that I don't like about it are the servers have some issues, sort of getting people in consistently, but more importantly, like there's no real matchmaking in terms of skill or anything like that. Like there's when you go into you're just thrown into an 8-player lobby, and you'll see people who are silver rank and have played tons and tons of games with a bunch of novices, and you can swap teams whoever you want. So it just leads to a ton of unbalanced matches where there's all the points are basically on one team, and there's like 4 people who have never played the game before trying to like figure out what the heck is going on.
Yeah,
but it's a good time. It's $30, which may, depending on your price sensitivity.
So it's an all right little thing.
Yeah, it's all right. I had fun with it, but yeah.
Okay. And so you also flew to where?
San Francisco.
San Francisco, beautiful SF, to play Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite.
Yeah, I played played it for about an hour and a half. Coverage should go up today. I wrote a very long piece about just covering a bunch of different details. So they gave me sort of the spiel about like, here's all the characters, here's everything, and then I asked them a bunch of very specific fighting game questions, like how has this character changed, how is this different, and then
so if you're an MVC nerd, go look on the site
go for a preview of Marvel vs. Capcom. That should be on the site now.
Okay.
But yeah, they announced 8 new characters, 5 for. It's really unbalanced because it's 5 for Marvel and 3 for Capcom. Well, technically 4 for Capcom.
Let's start with Capcom.
All right, so the new Capcom characters are Chun-Li.
Hang on, stop. Jeff from Chun-Li. Good choice.
Mhm.
All right,
Yeah.
great.
Great.
All right,
What
else
else
we
Great
got?
choice.
Chris Redfield.
Yeah, he's
Sure.
pretty good.
If you have to choose a Redfield.
Yeah,
Right.
one of the better Redfield. Strider.
Strider.
Sure.
Classic
Yeah.
choice.
He's
He's got to
ba-
have a Strider.
This is
in a
basically
Marvel.
his main series at this point. He's been in more Marvel vs. Capcom games than actual Strider games.
Interesting theory. Okay, sure.
And then Sigma from Mega Man X, who will be a DLC character. I wasn't able to get any hands-on time with him, but
Sure.
he's a big part of the trailer. And for Marvel, they announced Ultron. I'm waiting for it. Okay.
Why'd you
Everyone's
do that,
favorite.
Cyril?
I messed up. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have told him to put him in the game. Hawkeye, who looks a lot more like Jeremy Renner this time around.
Cool.
Okay.
The Hulk, everyone's favorite.
Right.
He's Thor.
Uh-huh.
Rocket Raccoon, who again looks more like his DC
Like
universe.
Bradley
counter-
Cooper.
yeah,
Exactly. Like Bradley Cooper with a tail. Have they addressed the X-Men conundrum yet?
They haven't. They wouldn't. They
Uh-oh.
said we're not answering any questions about roster changes. I asked, and they were like, "We can't answer
It
anything."
would be
about
so
that.
weird without Wolverine in that game.
Yeah.
Like he has been a mainstay in that franchise since X-Men versus Street Fighter.
Yep.
Yeah, so what's the high-level takeaway from your time with the new Infinite?
So I don't care for the way it looks.
Yeah.
It looks fine. It's not as bad as KOF because KOF is just looks like a game from last generation. But this just looks like high resolution renders of these characters versus Marvel vs. Capcom 3, which had a very stylized, very cartoonish look where all the
Right.
characters had thick black outlines. This just looks like they were told to make it like the movies, and so they did. And this is just like here's Jeremy Renner,
Yeah.
not Jeremy Renner as
Made it
Hawkeye.
like the Strider movie.
Yeah, like the Strider movie. But the actual gameplay I think is going to be very fun, but a little different. So you can't use assists, which kind of were a big part of extending combos. But they've added a lot of things to sort of extend those combos because a lot of the times assist characters were just kind of there to sort of provide covering fire and extend combos for a little bit. Now every character has ways to sort of do that on their own without having to rely on a character that is only there for their assist.
So do you think they're making smart decisions, or is it just as simple as Marvel's huge, they're trying to make this for a wider base?
Yeah, that's totally the feeling
That's
I'm
the
getting
overall
from it,
storyline here?
they want people who just want to have Marvel and Capcom characters fight each other have more fun than they were in past games, which got really technical. They were trying to with Marvel 3, they were trying we want to make a game that appeals to people who like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which was a very technical game with a lot of ins and outs, and so they just sort of made that again with new characters. Whereas this is you can just mash the square button and you get automatic combos that are somewhat lengthy and do as much damage as regular ones. But obviously, if you know what you're doing, you're going to have longer combos. And one of the big takeaways is that they've removed sort of the uppercut motion, so like the classic Shoryuken motion for most characters. So it's just like down, and punch will give you an uppercut move. But they've told me that with Ryu specifically, he'll be keeping his uppercut motion.
Because they
Thank
couldn't.
God,
They
yeah.
couldn't remove
Yeah.
that.
They
even
said,
remove
well,
it
it's
for
in
Smash
development. Who
Brothers.
knows what else we might change? It's not set in stone. But I asked about Ryu and they said, yeah.
So are you feeling confident about the overall direction then?
Yeah, I think it'll be fun. I think it's going to be super divisive in
Yeah.
terms of fighting game people because fighting game people, they just want sort of like here's the thing we've loved and here's a new version of that. This seems very wild and very different. And a lot of times when Capcom goes out of the way to be different, it's not met very well. Sort of like the last crossover game they kind of went out of the way with was Tatsunoko versus Capcom, which some people like, but most the fighting game community kind of didn't really latch onto it. Cross Tekken was not well loved by people like to play it. No one seemed to really want to watch it. And Street Fighter V has had sort of its issues
Right.
with launch, and so everyone's kind of like, I don't know about I hope it's good.
Everybody at the event was going, I don't know.
It was like a small time event. It wasn't like a big thing. It was just me and them in a room for a while. But I came out of it kind of pretty excited about it.
Right
So,
on. When's it coming out?
September 19th.
That's beautiful.
That's not far.
You guys, I feel like I've been cracking wise too much this episode. It's been a lot of monologues.
You've been a real this whole time.
That's how I'd like to apologize for bringing. But I'm going to change my inner self, and we're also going to change the cast here and take a turn for the dark.
Thank
no
God.
more colors, no more cereals, no more anything. So you guys ready to transition?
Get us
Yeah,
out of
absolutely.
here.
All right, ready? 3, 2, 1. Hey, everybody, welcome. We have Joe Juba.
Hey,
We have Dan Tack.
Hey,
Looking real handsome. We have Elise Favis.
Hey.
Welcome, everybody.
Right.
You guys are here to take a dark turn.
Uh-oh.
This is the dark middle chapter of the Game Informer show, so I hope you're ready.
Oh, wow.
We are the Empire Strikes Back.
We're the good one. We're the best
Absolutely.
one.
I like where Tack's going with this.
To kick things off, let's get the spookiest out of the way. Outlast 2.
Hey, yeah.
Elise, you just reviewed this.
I did. I gave it a 7.75.
What is this out on?
This is out on PC, Xbox One, and PS4.
How spooky is it?
Very, very spooky.
Really? Like playing alone, freaking yourself out type of thing?
When I was nearing the end of the game, I almost wondered if I could continue. I kept pausing, and I was just like utter fear. And then I walked away, and I felt like weak and shaky.
What?
Yeah, no, it's really scary. So basically, Outlast 2
Real
is...
quick, I want to butt in just for a
what?
second.
Yeah.
Hanson, maybe you couldn't hear this, but as Elise was playing this in the conference room, there were numerous times where there'd just be like explosions of screaming and swearing.
No, well, swearing, yes. Screaming?
Not like not like cartoon screaming, but like what? Ah!
Oh, that's good.
Moments,
This
so.
also makes me think every horror game, I'll say every single one, they should have a feature where even on the pause screen, occasionally there's a jump scare. So like at random times when a game is
No.
paused, it's sort of like,
Bad idea.
Okay, Elise was telling us what Outlast 2 is actually about.
yeah, please.
All right. Outlast 2 is the sequel to Red Barrel's Outlast, which came out in 2013.
Help me out. Was this the one where you're in an insane asylum?
Yeah, exactly. You're playing, in the first one, you're playing as an investigative journalist. It's the kind of same idea again. Like you're once again playing as a journalist. This time you're with your wife, and you're investigating the murder of a Jane Doe in rural Arizona.
The
So you get
spookiest state.
there, and your wife is kidnapped by these crazy cultists, and basically your goal is to try and find her, figure out what happened to her, get her back, and try to escape. But all these crazy cultists are after you. So,
And so that's it. Just it's not like supernatural.
well, so the thing is, there are some supernatural elements to it. Like, I would say a lot of the story beats are kind of left to your interpretation. Like, you know that there are two factions to this cult. Like, they all want you dead, but I wouldn't spoil more than that.
Okay.
But there is also these flashbacks that happen,
Mm.
where you are sent back to the 90s into this Catholic school, which is basically where the
spookiest
protagonist-
religion.
After you said the spookiest state, I can't help but thinking it's set in Arizona.
And yeah, so you play through this backstory a little bit of the protagonist and this kind of mystery that happened in his past, and you work through that, and then it kind of switches to the present.
So a
Goes
lot of
back and
puzzles, just
There
exploration.
are light environmental puzzles, kind of like pushing crates around to get up to a new floor, or some annoying lever pushing and flicking of switches every once in a while, kind of like the first Outlast, but
Okay.
there is less of that, which I was happy about. I think unfortunately the most there are a couple infuriating things. It's a very disorienting game, which sometimes works, other times really doesn't. Like the environments are a lot bigger this time, but it's still a linear game, but half the time you're just trying to figure out where the hell you're supposed to go,
Yeah.
which I found just distracted me more than made anything spooky.
It's tough to be
So-
scared when you're frustrated at
That's
where you're
exactly
supposed to
it.
go.
So that was an unfortunate thing. Also, I found like the story didn't really wrap up in a satisfying way for me. It asks a lot of questions, and then you're able to look through documents that you find, and you can kind of piece some things together, but a lot of it's really cryptic.
Was it tough to piece together because your hands were over your eyes?
That was probably the reason. Yeah, I
Okay.
should play again.
Perfect.
No, but anyway, it's a good game. It does a lot of really clever, scary stuff, like a lot of psychological horror, a lot of like
Ooh.
messing with your head. I mean, the signature Outlast mechanic is like using your night vision camcorder to get around.
That's right.
So you're doing that again, and you're using that night vision thing to basically see where you're going half the time. And there's batteries scattered around, so your battery keeps depleting, and you find those batteries, and you get really paranoid half the time because like, oh god, how many batteries do I have left? I don't want to run out, or there's these really intense chase scenes that you know, at one point I was like crawling underneath a patio, and they're like cultists like trying to stab me with pitchforks from above, and then like I get out and there's keep chasing. Anyway, it's like crazy.
So it seems like if you like being scared, this is a pretty solid game to turn to if you want
solid.
a spooky weekend.
I would say like the latter half is exponentially scarier than the first half, just because it really feels like a mental breakdown. You literally, you as a player start to question, did I just see that happen? You know, was that a tree branch, or is someone hanging from that tree branch? Like there are a lot of shadow effects. There are a lot of very quick hallucinations.
Cool.
I enjoyed it.
My question about that is like, how does it, for me, when you talk about like psychological scares, so much of that is like tied up into a sort of like story and circumstance. And so if you're talking about that being a little disappointing, like how does it walk the line between that and maybe like just like haunted house sort of like jump scary kind of stuff?
It's a good point. I mean, I think the good thing about the psychological scares is a lot of them are happening in that school, and it's kind of its own little mystery there that makes enough sense. Like, I don't know, it's hard to say, because you're right that some of the effectiveness is taken away when the story isn't as good, but like I think because a lot of the psychological stuff is happening in those flashbacks, it kind of does tend to work.
Let the record
it's hard
show.
To explain.
I want the record to show that Dan is just a bizarre person, and he's
he's
been like slowly leaning into his microphone, like sideways, like he's maybe about to say something, and then leaning back. No. Is that just your default idle animation? Is leaning into a microphone?
Or maybe he just thinks it's a snack.
I was actually getting kind of hungry.
Well, Dan, let's talk about the biggest thing we can chomp on this episode.
Okay.
Call of Duty, how do I say this?
WW2?
They don't say World War II. They say Call of Duty WW2.
It's stylized WW2.
How do I say this? Ben, that's World War II.
That's the way it's being stylized.
No, I know, but okay, so WW2.
Yeah.
The reveal was this week. You went to San Francisco. You saw it. What'd you think?
I did. What did I think? Well, I didn't get to play any, so you know.
All right, you saw like a gameplay
kind
demo.
Of a little early, yeah. It's kind of early to make any kind of firm judgments like that. And didn't see any multiplayer, but we do know a lot about how things are going to work. You know, this is pretty much where Call of Duty fans have wanted the series to go back to since, I don't know, Ghost, probably, right? They don't really like this futuristic stuff. They want those old school weapons. They want no more jetpacks. They don't want flying around. They don't want robo sliding into people.
The Ghost thing is an interesting point. Just thinking about when this game specifically was greenlit, this would have been right at the release of Ghost, where it's kind of like a yanking the collar moment for Activision. So it's like, it seems like a bold move, but in a way, it might be somewhat safe to go back to World War II. It's like, what's a good, reliable thing fans will not question? Let's go back to World War II.
It's greenlit at Ghosts?
Yeah, it would have been 2013, right? Yeah.
This would have been after Advanced Warfare, right?
Yeah, so in Ghosts Advanced Warfare.
Right.
The point being is that this feels like wow, they're really going back to their roots for us, when really this is probably like this has been in the works for 2 or 3 years.
Yes, it has. So anyway,
again, I mean, just real quick, Dan, please don't talk during this segment.
Cycle.
Yeah, but just the idea of like there's going to be so many people that'll be like, oh, Battlefield 1, of course you're going to do that Call of Duty. Like, keep in mind, there's a lot of work going into this thing. That the wheel was in motion a long time ago.
Yes. Activision has the 3 different studios that are doing Call of Duty. They have a 3-year cycle for each. So, right. So it's not taking from Battlefield 1. Let's get that done.
Sure.
And out there.
Also a different war.
Yes. But the whole going back to traditional, I guess, warfare. It's instead of future warfare.
Yeah. Anyway, Metal Gear pioneered that with Metal Gear Solid 3.
Now that we've gotten all that out of the way.
I was just going for you, Dan.
We will eventually talk about the game at some point.
Fill our brains.
So what do you want to know, really? Multiplayer looks very interesting. It's just going to be asymmetrical components, Axis versus Allies. Just for an example, one team will storm the beach at Normandy, the other team will defend it. Just as an example.
That is the best Battlefield 1942 level. I'm excited to play that again.
Just an example.
So it seems like it's easy to be like, okay, they're hitting the World War II cliche again. I watched a trailer.
They are.
I'm kind of excited. I know we've stormed Normandy in so many games.
We say that.
Of games, but it's fun to see this generation.
And it is, too. The same sense like I got, too. It's like, I'm a big Saving Private Ryan fan, so like while watching this, I'm like, wow, I've seen this, right? I've seen this before.
Like how many beats? What are we talking?
The beats are all there. Like, going over the side of the boat, people drowning with their backpacks on.
Well.
The bullet fire, the hedgehogs, getting up to the thing and blowing it with the, those little stick them together and fling them up there. With
I heard Saving Private Ryan just ripped that off from an actual war.
They
as well,
did.
so.
They took it right from the war, if you can believe it. I mean, geez. But no, they hit those beats really hard, and they do them really well in what I saw. I mean, obviously just a hands-off demo, but yeah, you feel like you're there. The player is in the middle of all that chaos, and that is what it was like, right? Or they're trying to simulate that. You're not a super soldier in this Call of Duty like we have been for the past several Call of Duties with, robot arms and jetpacks and everything. You're actually just like, a very vulnerable kid out of Texas who has not fought.
Is it going to be jarring for fans to not have some of those movement abilities now?
And that's what
we've
I'm
had
wondering.
it for so long.
I'm wondering how it's all gets implemented in multiplayer. We know a lot about campaign. Campaign is like no auto health regen, which is like insane, right? You can't just get shot, hide behind a rock, you heal up, you go back out, and you go down the tunnel. You will actually have to call upon your squad mates for, medic support, ammunition, and covering fire to be able to advance in some situations. So I don't know how it's implemented, but again, it's focusing on the fact that you're part of a squad and you're not some crazy badass who's just going to fly through the corridor level, shooting everything that moves and winning everything.
I have a question real quick.
Yes.
So the series over the last few years has definitely sort of become more known in terms of like the set piece moments, the bombast, all of that kinds of stuff. For the single player campaign, I know that there's definitely a community out there who is really looking for an actual good story out of a Call of Duty game. I know we don't know too much at this point.
We know enough.
But what's your take on whether or not that can happen with wwII?
It can. So I inquired about the set piece moments, and they're still going to be there. It'll be different. Like one of the ones I saw was a church or some other building with a giant bell getting blown up while you're inside of it. That was pretty crazy. But there's still going to be that explosiveness. But again, from what we saw, they are treating this World War II with a lot more reverence and respect than they would. You're blowing up some random building that has GoBots being made in it. Right?
Or you're fighting Space Jon Snow.
Right.
And Church Cheetah.
They don't really care what they do with that because, right, Spaceman, he was awful anyway.
Yeah. And knowing that studio from when we went there for the Advanced Warfare trip, they are big on focusing on story in the way they talk about the game. And to be fair, I think Advanced Warfare largely pulled it off for the Call of Duty series. I think that was one of the more solid campaigns in a long while.
The campaigns have overall, with the exception of Black Ops 3, have been getting better for a while.
Yeah.
Especially Infinite Warfare I really enjoyed, and I liked Advanced Warfare as well. But yeah, for this one, the story is basically, you play as Red, the kid out of Texas. You've got a couple of your friends in the squad, and you make some new friends. And you've got the two, basically Platoon, the movie, okay?
All right.
You've got the really crazy, let's kill them all, anything, victory at any cost. And then you've got the other guy who's like, what are you doing? These are people kind of guy. And they'll be fighting, trying to fight for your soul during the course of the war and the situations that you're in. But on top of that, you're also going to, you're going to go through some situations that haven't been covered a lot extensively in other World War II games. Like Hurtgen Forest. That's a battle you rarely ever hear about when in this context.
I got a feel for them trying to map out where do we go that hasn't been seen before in the game.
World War II. We're going from D-Day in Normandy through France to Germany. That's the course of the campaign. So
cool.
44 to 45. European theater only.
Elise, this might be a dumb question. As a Canadian, what do you think about this? Do you have any special thoughts on going back to World War II?
Hanson, don't do this to me.
Well, I do want to jump in
I don't
here.
have any special thoughts.
Okay,
they are bringing in you will get to play as and with British forces and French resistance.
Canadian?
No Canadians that I know of, but maybe.
What does as a Canadian have to do with? And you're the worst sometimes.
I'm just wondering if it's oh, here we go back to World War II. If you're more excited about this, if you think Americans are more into World War II fiction.
No, not really.
All right.
Well, you gotta think. Yeah, okay.
Did you leave optimistic?
Absolutely, especially since the things had leaked way ahead of time, right? So we knew it was World War II, and it was just okay, that's cool. I like World War II, but again, I kept getting that man, this is really like Saving Private Ryan, and that's not a bad thing, right? The more I thought about it, it's okay, that's fine. That's the campaign. I'm really excited about the multiplayer, and I know a lot of other Call of Duty people like me. We like the campaign, but we're only going to play it once, right? And then we're going to get to multiplayer stuff. And in addition, there is a separate co-op campaign. So all the co-op players out there, that's what they get to play. It's a different story, completely different story.
Interesting.
And as for the multiplayer goes, this sounds radically different than what we're used to with the perk system and everything. You pick a division, sort of like armor, infantry, airborne, and then you get promoted through it to get your upgrades and level up and class perks and stuff. So I have no idea how that's going to work in the scope of the stuff we've been used to for the last few years, like pick 12 pick X, whatever. We don't know what it's going to be like. And the whole asymmetrical combat of war is totally weird. Like, you're going to be, do you side with Axis or allies? Is that like a permanent thing you do, or you just swap back and forth? We don't know. And then you've got like the whole shared social space where tons of players are just going to hang out between games instead of the lobby.
I can't wait to watch people jump around at Omaha Beach.
God, I am sure that it will not be presented that way.
I hope not.
We're really treating it with reverence here.
And
Right.
beach balls. Reverence and beach balls.
They
Just
actually
make that clear.
They actually did. No, for real. Like, that kind of stuff always sinks in. But I'm sure, and I hope to God, there will not be any pink robot armor people fighting on Normandy. That's just that will blow my mind.
That surprises me. Quick offshoot from
Please.
the actual Call of Duty thing.
Is this about Canadian history?
So as an American, something that I'd really like to see. It surprises me that for all of maybe there's just no market for it. I would be super interested in playing a game that's all about historical accuracy in some ways.
Yeah.
But then takes the futuristic super soldier and puts you in there. What if there was your character from Infinite Warfare who's landing on D-Day and is with super
time travel
guns
story.
and
Totally.
yeah.
There's a game on Steam that might be up your alley. It's called Dino D-Day.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Something
What?
like that. Joe, do you know that? Or
Alright.
Dan, do you know this game?
No.
It is some weird fusion of dinosaurs, robots invading World War II. Dude, you got to check it out.
It'd be hard to treat it with the same kind of reverence
that-
that we're talking about here,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I don't know. I just think that kind of thing might be fun.
Dan, as a fan of Advanced Warfare, I'm sure there's other fans of Advanced Warfare out there.
Mhm.
Did you get any sense of whether they were starting to make Advanced Warfare 2? Did they have any lip service to we know? And no lip service in terms of we want to honor fans of Advanced Warfare. This is in a similar vein. Anything like that?
No.
That's crazy.
I think
That was
that-
a successful game as far as we can
It
tell.
was, but I think a lot of the fans of Call of Duty do want to go back to slower paced combat and not just flying above everybody else, inverting the axis to try to get the jump on people
Sure.
and doing slides through doors and then shotgunning people. It's just not Call of Duty, right?
Yeah.
That's just not what it is. It's about, just
Yeah. It's
boots
interesting.
on the ground combat, to use the language that you're going to hear a ton of, I'm sure, leading up to the game launch.
What
course.
strikes me as weird about this, though, is that I thought people liked Infinite Warfare. It seems
Infinite Warfare? People like the campaign.
okay. It feels to me like there's a lot of distancing going on. It's oh no, we're not like Infinite Warfare. We're
Totally.
my impression is that that was generally successful and people generally liked it.
I think
So
the campaign was interesting and well done, but I think it got out of the gate really poorly. I don't know if it ever quite broke free as far as the community goes. It
Well,
always
that
kind of had a
terrible
negative
trailer,
impression.
but-
So we're talking. Yeah, if we're talking about Infinite, it was the trailer did so much damage to that game.
It's
It was
true, yeah.
unbelievable. People would write it off just because of that immediately, and then they held to that no matter what other evidence to the contrary was presented to them.
Yeah, the high level view I have is that the community's a little bit mixed in Infinite Warfare, but I think it's a good game, at least campaign wise, and I think there are strong defenders out there, but they're definitely the minority as far as I can tell.
I think the campaign is generally well received, even by
All right, take it all back.
who don't like the continuation of the multiplayer. And many aspects of that, like loot crates that have guns.
Yeah.
That's a completely different topic. So
Interesting tidbit on the studio here with Sledgehammer is this isn't their first historical Call of Duty, because before Advanced Warfare, remember, they were making, which I believe is a third-person Vietnam Call of Duty. And then they got pulled off that and then made Advanced Warfare. So it's interesting that now it's hey, we're going back in time again. Now we're going World War II. So I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a lot of enthusiasm for that historical grounding for a Call of Duty game.
and I think this is honestly, after we're getting future fatigue real hard after Infinite. I think that was also going against it. We just had two futuristic Call of Duties. And Call of Duties is a series rooted in the past. And
Yeah.
we kept going further and further in the future. It's nah.
Time keeps on moving into the future.
Hmm.
Elise, do you like reading?
I do.
Okay, because we want to talk about Little Nightmares, the new game that Namco published. And Jeff Court couldn't be here today,
Okay,
but he
yeah.
left a note that says to be read on the podcast. So
Oh, dear.
I'm going to break the seal.
This is ridiculous.
Okay.
And if you would just cover in a Jeff Cork-like tone, if you could.
Okay.
Just say, baby a lot and stuff. That's kind of his thing.
And-
So not.
Stroke your disgusting beard.
Okay, ready? I'll try to sound like Cork. Hey, Ben. No, it doesn't.
Jeff, are you here?
Just do it.
Okay, no. Hey, Ben. Yeah, so that's what it says.
Uh-huh.
Hey, Ben. Yeah, so I played Little Nightmares and it was really good. I didn't know anything about it really before I got the review, and it was a nice surprise. It's definitely a lot like Inside and Limbo, but it does some really interesting things that make it more than just a play dead retreat. That rhymes. Retread. Yeah, okay. I'm just not pronouncing things properly.
Oh, Play Dead Retread?
Yeah, retread.
Yeah,
Got
yeah. Okay.
That's cute.
Get your stuff together, Court.
Good
Come on,
Lord.
let's go.
I've heard some complaints about its length. It's not a long game, but I think it actually makes for a stronger overall experience. There's a lot of variety in the game, both in locations and enemies, and I don't know that it would have been possible for a small team to make the game as consistently fresh if it had been stretched to 10 hours. Anyway, it's really good, and you should play it. It's on PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC on April 28. You can read my review on the site. I give it a 9, if that means anything at all to you. Also, Joe super sucks.
Oh, well, at least I know what a rhyme is, Jeff Cork.
So I started this game last night a little bit too. Little Nightmares. He's not kidding. It is very Inside. Like, I cannot imagine being this team last year when Inside came out and just
Like,
sure everyone's head were in their hands like, oh Christ. That said, it has a really interesting look. It's worth checking out. The team worked on a lot of Little Big Planet stuff, a Little Big Planet 3, stuff like that.
Oh,
Dantak,
okay.
why are you doing that? Why are you giving me that face?
Because you keep noticing it.
Stop. All right. Anyways, as I was monologuing about, it has like a good texture-rich, miniaturized look to it. And it's 3D compared to Inside just being two-dimensional, just running back and forth. And there's more options. It's a little more complex than Inside, but it doesn't take much. But it seems interesting. And Jeff Cork really seemed to love it.
Yeah.
I've only seen trailers of it, but I was like very interested from the start. I think it had like a different name originally, like Hunger.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I remember being like, "Oh, this is cool," when I first saw it. So
Yeah,
and I'm a big fan of Limbo and Inside. So
And don't we have like
similar to that.
a first 30 minutes up on the website?
We do. You can check it out.
Yeah.
It's easy to find on YouTube.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, it's not the biggest fan base, but there is that community out there that loves stuff like Limbo and Inside, Kyle Hilliard specifically. And it's interesting so soon after Inside came out to have another game that's very much in that vein, very dark, very freaky, disturbing stuff.
Yeah. But
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just saying, it looks more colorful though than Limbo and Inside.
At the beginning section,
Yeah.
it doesn't take much to be more colorful than Inside, so maybe a little bit, but at least from the stuff I saw, it stays pretty close to the dark hues.
Okay.
Joe, thoughts on Little Nightmares?
I would like to play it.
There we go.
It looks good.
Now let's really get to the star of this show. We've been wading through this water for so much time.
Oh, boy.
World War II. Let's finally talk about the remains of Edith Finch.
What remains?
What's eating
The
Edith Finch?
remains. Oh shoot!
However
it's
much-
like way darker.
However much of
It's
Edith
pretty
Finch
dark
is
anyway.
left. That's
The old Edith Finch game. Now,
Yeah.
don't be confused. This is not the vanishing of Ethan Carter.
All right.
correct.
Which
This
was
is-
not a good game.
Whoa.
Some people liked it.
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
Don't be confused
Hot take.
and mix it up with so many other games kind of in that walking sim genre. This is new. This is different. This is from the creators of Unfinished Swan, if you remember that crazy
Yeah.
white-black
I like
painting
that
game.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I'm going to take issue with the term walking simulator right out of the
Please,
gate.
let's do it.
I just like for any of those games because it's always just applied in such a derogatory way. You know,
I
it's
don't
like,
know
oh,
that it always is applied that way.
It's a tag on Steam. That's not a derogatory
Yeah.
tag.
whatever. I'm not going to let what's a tag
it
on
ha- it-
Steam or
it-
not
it,
dictate.
it tells
it
you what the
does-
game is going to be
Totally.
like, though. I mean, I whether you don't
But
have
it's
to
not
use it in
just
a negative
walking.
fashion.
Like it
This-
does sound like
I-
it gives it a negative connotation.
Here's why I don't like it.
Okay.
Even if it's not negative, it's misrepresentative because it's not a game about walking. These are like storytelling games. That's
Okay,
what they
hang on.
are.
It conjures up what kind of game it is. So what would
Totally.
you call the genre of those games then? If you don't want to use the term walking sim.
I would call them storytelling games.
Okay.
That just seems... People think that's like an adventure game
But it
at
is.
that point.
I mean, that,
It is an adventure game.
But I feel like there's such
Hold
a
on.
distinct flavor to saying walking sim if you don't have that negative connotation, which I don't. I like those types of
people
games.
do. Tons of people do though, and I
If they
feel
wanna
like
use
it's
it as ammo.
alienating. No. I think it's alienating that if there are people out there who's like, I don't like walking simulators like Gone Home or whatever. I think that they would miss out on some things that are different.
How about every time we call Edith Finch a walking simulator, we also express...
We don't. I have never called it that, and I'm not
Okay.
going to.
I'm going to do it right
We're
now.
going to call it a story.
Edith Finch is very much a walking sim, but it's fucking awesome. Like, I beat it last night, and I really, really love this game.
Okay, I'm glad-
And
I'm
I
glad
recommend
you
people
did too.
check out, even though you walk around and a story is told to you.
So what ultimately sets this game apart for me from those other from other storytelling games is the fact that in so many of those games the player is sort of it plays a passive role in the sense like even though you're moving around and like poking around and digging stuff up, you're reading or you're listening to dialogue or things like that. And what I think really sets Edith Finch apart is the way that like the player is really drawn in and made an active participant in these stories. So it's not just you reading a note and piecing together what happened 20 years ago or whatever. You read the first sentence of it and then you are playing what happened 20 years ago. And it's not always just like, oh, well, here's a room from 20 years ago, wander around in it. Like there are like little twists on gameplay and things like that I don't want to spoil too much.
No, I definitely don't either. The core of it is you're a young lady who's taking a second look at her childhood home and piecing together her family history in a really fun and creative way.
Right. And I don't think that it's too... I mean, I want to sell the premise a little bit, and I think this is out there before. The idea is that Edith Finch is the last Finch in this family that has sort of had a string of misfortunes over the last several generations. So pretty much every member of her family has died under sort of bizarre circumstances.
Yeah.
So that's ultimately what the structure of the game is sort of like a short story anthology where every story ends in the death of a Finch. So you are going through and they're not all just like old folks either. I mean like some of them die as children, some of them die as adults, etc. So
yeah, absolutely. Like the easy comparison is Gone Home.
So
go ahead, Elise.
Oh no, so it's not that they all die premature deaths, it's that they die in unfortunate ways? Is that or like accidental deaths?
I don't want to get too far
spoil it for me before I play it.
Too far into that stuff.
Okay.
I guess what I'd
was just
say
curious.
is like it's not like
what makes them cursed if they're just
yeah, I would say that they are not typical deaths.
I'm trying to figure out, Joe, I don't have the best comparison. How would you describe the tone of this game? It's like, the best I could come up with, like, Lemony Snicket. Like, how would you describe the overall tone and vibe? Because it has a distinct flavor that's so different from other games out there.
Man, I mean, it's weird because it's almost got a sort of like childish storybook look to it. Like the house is very like improbable in its architecture and things like that. But it's also just so sad.
Yep.
Like because, the game doesn't try to laugh off all of these deaths. I mean, like there's just this sort of like tragedy hanging over everything you're doing also. So I don't know if there is a really good analog for it.
You say tragedy, maybe I'm really morbid. There is kind of a
like whimsical?
There's almost whimsical tragedy. Is that there's something a little bit like ironic
that sounds very
or
Lemony Snicket.
something kind of cheeky about some of these situations.
Maybe
like
I don't know.
Black humor?
Yeah,
almost?
yeah. I would go so far as that. Joe doesn't seem to be agreeing.
Well, sometimes it's just like in general, my when I look back on my experience of the game, levity is not one of the first words that comes to mind.
Okay.
So it's like it has. It's not like it's just super sad all the time and trying to bring you down. Like it does have some moments of lightness, but like overall, I just think that the tone is more of a sort of like quiet whimsy, maybe.
Maybe it's like morbid but intriguing.
Sure,
Yeah.
let's go with that.
That's
So-
fair.
It's so strange to play this game and then think back on games like Gone Home. All credit to Gone Home. I think it's a really important game. But this game is just so jam-packed with detail, and you can't pick up objects and rotate them around like you can in Gone Home, some other games like this. But still, this house is cluttered, and you can spend so much time just looking at each room. There's so many details in this home, even though to advance the plot, it is one glowing thing that you go towards, and then you're told the next bit of story. But it's told in a very, I don't know, entertaining way where it's like motion graphics, like the text is appearing on different objects around, kind of leading you through the story. Dan, you seem to be snickering.
I'm not.
Lemony snickering over
No,
there.
I just think you're describing it in this interesting way to me.
Here's what I want to say about this game. I think, all right, the WS terminology might be seen as a negative thing in some people's mind, and they might say, like, I even look back on Gone Home for my own playthrough and just think, I think it's a really interesting game. I don't know if I would necessarily consider it fun, but this game, I had so much fun going through it. There's one moment in particular where I literally was like, yes. Yes, this is so good. It is entertaining to play through this and learn the histories and backstories of these characters in a way that I haven't seen from this genre before.
Yeah, I think part of what that is it puts in front of you, like it keeps you excited to keep moving forward.
Yes.
So it's like more than just like, wow, I'm excited to get to the next room so I learn more of this story. It's like, I am excited to get to the next room so I find out what sort of like clever twist on gameplay people have had. So like, I'll talk about the very first. I don't think you should.
I don't know.
We have there's a video of it up on our site.
Yeah. Dantac seems to be
I want to play it.
I think I leave it clean.
Okay.
It's creative.
Here's what I'll say is that as Edith Finch, you are moving around in first person in a very sort of familiar way, like first person looking around, digging through stuff. But not every sequence that you go through follows those same mechanics. So that's part of what propels you forward is the idea of like, wow, I wonder what's going to happen next. Or in cases where it's like you maybe hear about a family member a few times in previous stories. So you're like, oh, gee, I wonder like what actually happened to that person.
How did that person get so messed up?
Yeah.
And oh, good God.
And then you're like, oh, wow. Okay. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just really smart. I mean, the amount of detail in the home I think is great. The environments are great. The game looks fantastic. But something so smart they do is on the pause screen, it has the entire family tree. So many times while I was playing it, they would mention this character and be like, who is this again? You can pause it, just have the easy cheat sheet. Doesn't spoil anything, but just reinforces exactly how this thing structures.
If you've ever read like the Game of Thrones books, it's like being able to flip in the back and like, okay, wait a minute. Who was whose dad in House Targaryen? You know, like it's a smaller version of that. One thing I wanted to bring up about like the house and the variety too is like I don't want to make it seem like I'm giving Gone Home a bad time because it was definitely like a pivotal game, like that kind of established this as a viable genre now, right? But one thing about those games is they have a sense of like you get into a room and it's like, okay, here's a couch that you've kind of seen before, here's a table that you've kind of seen before. Like the rooms kind of use the same assets even if they're laid out in different ways, and that's one thing I really appreciated about Edith Finch is that it seems like every room is sort of the attention to detail in the kinds of things that are in that room, in the furniture, in the objects, in the layout, like convey a story and are unique in a way that you often don't see in these kinds.
It's like a Persona 5 dungeon, each room.
You
know, maybe
like
not necessarily.
Very, like room to room, it's very personally stylized.
Yeah. That the objects in the room kind of augment the story.
Kind of their own environmental storytelling to represent those characters.
Yeah, I guess I'd go with what I said. Like I think it's augmenting more than anything. It's not like you walk around the room and you get the full picture of it, but
a piece.
Yeah, but the things in combination work well together.
I like the Joe Juba sentence. I'd go with what I said.
I mean, like, I don't want to misrepresent.
Okay, I see how it is.
Totally.
I think I'm right.
I think there's
you played it. I've only played small bits.
In the last 3 years, I feel like there have been a healthy amount of these games in this vein, and I don't want this one to slip by. I think if you enjoy a short story-focused experience, like it's a couple hours long, realistically.
Yeah,
definitely check it out. It's on PS4 and Steam. Is that it?
That's it.
Yep.
Okay.
And there's also, I mean, if you played and enjoyed the Unfinished Swan, which is Giant Sparrow's previous game, there's a little Easter egg in there for you too.
A subtle nod, but really, really awesome. Yeah. One of my favorite experiences so far this year, for sure.
I love it.
Hey, there we go. Dan, Here's the Storm 2.0 is out.
Yes, it is. I highly recommend it if you haven't played it yet, and if you've played Heroes of the Storm and didn't like it, you probably still won't like it. However, if you played it and you were kind of like, I like this game, but I hate the fact that I have to like grind so much to unlock new champions and heroes, now you don't have to. Now you get lots of heroes given to you in loot crates, and you get 20 for coming back. They're really pushing this, come back and play our game.
And they're overwatching the hell out of this thing.
Yeah, and hey, that's one great way to make it happen, right?
Yeah,
is by the tie-ins. I think we're getting a little bit too much Overwatch in there, to be frank, but the game itself, I still really enjoy. I stand by the score I gave it back in the day.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic game. It's the MOBA for people who don't like MOBAs.
Absolutely. There's still that experience. We have a video on the site of you giving a tour of what's new and stuff. And there was that thing of, before we got into the game, like seeing all the different skins, all the different characters are in there. It's like, this is so much fun. This is Blizzard just having a great time. They have StarCraft 2 characters wearing basketball jerseys and spinning basketballs around.
No, that was a Diablo 3 character.
Was it really?
Yeah. Asmodan?
Oh, well, never mind. I take it back. Anyways, but still, a lot of fun skins in there, a lot of great personality, and then you get into the gameplay and it's like, oh, that's right, it's a MOBA.
It is cool.
I keep forgetting. Okay.
It's crazy. Like, it's Blizzard's playground. Like, all their brands together, just having fun and being stupid. And the game's actually pretty fun.
I was thinking of Abathur, by the way.
And yet you complain about them putting Overwatch in there?
I mean,
to like ruin the purity of the mishmash universe?
It's fine, it's there. It's just like all the recent push has been like, here's an Overwatch map, here's an Overwatch hero, here's an Overwatch hero, here's another Overwatch hero.
I feel like, why wouldn't they do that?
It's fine. It's fine, right? It's okay that they're bringing all that Overwatch in, but it's just like, we can get a Deckard Cain in there or a Deathwing.
Dan's
something.
more of a Blackthorn guy. Let's get back to
I
the
would love
basics here.
Lost
someday.
Vikings.
The Vikings are already in there. The Vikings are in there.
Whatever.
That's awesome. Give it up.
And that's one of the cool things. The Vikings, it's interesting to brought the Vikings up because one of the things I think is super cool about Heroes of the Storm as opposed to other MOBAs is that they get super crazy with the characters to like capturing their flavor from their game into it. Like the Lost Vikings, you literally control all 3 Vikings and they're all different. So the player who uses them has to control all 3 characters instead of one.
I want to act unimpressed, but that is pretty cool.
Yeah,
It's really creative and fun.
Yeah.
it is.
And it's still kind of a MOBA. But yeah, check it out.
It
Why
is.
not?
I mean, it is.
Hey, do you guys want to move on to some great emails?
Yeah.
And welcome back to the Game Informer Show. We lost Elise. We picked up Reiner.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, it's been a
what is
while
he
since
doing
you've been
here?
on, man.
Couple weeks, right?
have you been
3
doing?
weeks, 4 weeks. I went on vacation. I went and saw Star Wars Celebration.
Oh, that's right. Hey,
Yeah.
what was the best moment of Star Wars Celebration that only you experienced? Not like
Watching
seeing the Last Jedi trailer.
It was like early in the morning, and then an R2 unit went by pretty fast, and there was a little Jawa chasing him with the gun, and he was like making all the Jawa noises. Yeah, it was amazing.
That sounds cute.
But all throughout the show, those Jawas were giving the astromech droids a hard time.
Really? They're like trying to steal them and
yeah,
stuff?
I mean, they were like going after him. That's what
The
they
droid's
do.
like, I'm a human! I'm a human!
Yeah,
So that's the best part.
If you're a real twisted guy, you could go through with a taser and just like zap people in costume.
Perfect. Hey, we have great emails from the community. They sent them into podcast@gameinformer.com. We're going to choose our absolute favorite and then ship them out something super nice and super fun. You guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. First email that someone sent in to podcast@gameinformer.com is Nick from Seattle, Washington. He says, Dear GI crew, with all the discussion of the Switch and the Wii U in the last few podcasts, I've been thinking about the games that made each console. These are the games that either convinced me to purchase the console or took the crown as the game that made the console awesome. I like the one... I'm going to shape next question. The one that made us convinced to buy the console. For example, for him, Pokemon made the Game Boy. Super Smash Bros. Made the 64. Luigi's Mansion lured me to the GameCube. Pikmin 3 brought me to the Wii U. So my question is, what games lured you to the consoles you've played on?
Sounds like this guy just, if it's a Nintendo console, he's going to buy it no matter what.
Wait a minute. I'm starting to see it. What's left out? Stupid Nintendo? Nothing was there to lure him in.
Huh.
I have a weird one. I bought my PS3 because of Brutal Legend.
That is.
I was holding out on that generation for quite a while. I was in college, strapped for cash, and then I saw Brutal Legends. Like, I love Tim Schafer.
No.
This game looks effing awesome, and I bought a PS3 for that. I never finished it, but good Game Club game someday, right? Right?
Maybe.
That I replayed the first couple hours of that game. The first couple hours are still fantastic and worth experiencing in some way. Dan?
Hey, so mine is Bloodborne for PS4. It's the only reason.
Oh, there we go.
Only reason I even went back to consoles after missing, the last generation before that. That did it.
And what's it like to be a console baby?
I mean, it's okay. I get to play Persona. I get to play, Bloodborne. There's cool stuff on there now and then.
Get to play real games.
There's cool stuff on there now and then. Final Fantasy VII got me buying a PS1. I didn't have
Were
one.
you a Nintendo guy before then?
Yeah, I mean, I had a Super Nintendo up to that point and loved Final Fantasy 3/6.
Just say 6.
And I wasn't planning on like jumping in quite yet to the next generation because I was like, I still love Super Nintendo and I loved it at the time. But then like I saw some friends playing FF7 and was like, it looks so amazing at the time. It looks so good.
Were you so glued in back in the day that you saw that weird N64 3D render of Final Fantasy VI's characters and you were looking forward to that?
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't plugged in enough to like, like upcoming games at that point to really get that excited.
Reiner, the Atari 2600, what lured you in there?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, that's no joke. I have to go back. It was NES was Mario and Zelda and Baseball Stars.
Wait, there's a game called Baseball Stars?
It was amazing. It was like it was on Neo Geo and in arcades, but there was an NES version where it was like the first baseball game where you could name your teams and it tracked stats. It was the coolest thing.
Wow.
But a weird one recently was buying a second PS2 so my wife and I could play Final Fantasy 11 online. Together.
Wow. Okay.
So we had 2 of them in the house.
Because you needed that. Oh, together. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Oh, confusing. Because, I bought the PS2 Slim because the modem was built in for that, right?
Yeah, this we had to buy the extra modem, the
Right.
thing you screwed on the back.
Oh, what a nightmare. But I bought that slim 4 StarCraft Ghost, hoping to play that online, and then
I thought of a more embarrassing
Keep
one.
hope up, man. It's still coming.
I thought of a more embarrassing one than Final Fantasy is I bought a Sega Genesis solely for Tasmania.
That is
I
terrible.
really wanted that Taz 2D platformer.
totally. I played the crappy Game Gear version. That's one where you start in the Martian zoo, right? And you're freeing the bird.
I don't even remember at this point. I beat the game in like 2 days and then realized that it sucked. And other games for the Genesis I was not interested in and traded it in for a Super Nintendo like a couple weeks later.
Oh, wow. Just think, if you never did that, Tasmania might be at the top of your heap instead of Final Fantasy VI.
And then Switch for 1-2 Switch. I mean,
Of course.
That was,
yeah.
that was
I
a
read the
seller.
Washington
It's a
Post. I
giveaway.
remember.
Yeah.
Anyways, Ian from Chicago writes in, hey, gang. I'm going on 32 this year, but one of the greatest mysteries of my entire life has been, how in the hell do video game light guns work? I've never understood the magic behind Duck Hunt. Can you explain? You could probably just Google this, but I like that he emails into the podcast to try and figure it out. I also did not really comprehend it until I asked Jeff Cork when I read this email. Jeff Cork explains. Hang on, do you guys know how light guns work?
No.
Well, there's different iterations of it, though. But you're speaking specifically of the Zapper, then.
I think let's go Zapper.
Okay.
Do you guys know? Pop quiz, hot shots.
I don't.
Apparently, according to Jeff Cork, it's that the entire screen flashes with every shot, and then there's a little sensor on the end of the gun. So it just picks up that entire screen flash. So that's the crucial detail, which I suppose makes sense. I
It does
just
make
never really
sense.
thought about it. I just assumed, yeah, magic is magic, baby. Dan, you seem like the type of guy that's a real head and just held the zapper gun up to the TV so you could get the ducks exactly in
you couldn't
every
go too
shot.
close.
Just your TV's just scraped to hell from the
if you
zapper.
got too close, you wouldn't actually hit. You had to just there was a certain distance.
Right.
I did that also.
Everybody did that. Hans is just trying to make it seem like he was cooler, and he didn't do that. Everybody did that.
I played Duck Hunt the pure way.
We actually-
I was 100 yards
30
back.
feet away. Yeah.
But the duck hunt was fun once you figured out, like, player 2 can control the ducks, right? That was mad fun.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. Can I say, in that bundle, back when I was an idiot kid, I liked Duck Hunt more than Mario. In that twofer, one cartridge, that one really
but
stuck with me.
Duck hunt
The
was fun.
dream-
Nah.
The Dream Bundle was to get Rob the Robot. Everybody wanted the robot, right?
Yes.
So much fun.
So we talked before about bringing future Call of Duty technology into old things. What if we
Right.
brought the Infinite Warfare guy into Duck Hunt?
He would have a blast.
Oh, let's shoot him up. Come on, Tex. Josh Smith, Lord Chain says, have any of you ever felt immature when speaking to somebody because they know one of your main hobbies is gaming? If so, have you overcome it, and how?
No.
Any random adult I meet.
Yeah.
It's pretty much like, you do what for a living?
Yeah.
Right about baseball. Let's move on.
Nope.
Yeah. I felt a little weird when when we bought our house and was like, I was talking to my neighbors and they have I would more traditional jobs and like, what do you do? I was like, I write about video games. Like, my son really likes Minecraft. You write about Minecraft?
You stupid baldy guy.
Yeah. It's like,
Hold your head up, Joe.
My dog's going to crap in your backyard, buddy.
yeah, no joke. So it's not like I feel immature about it so much as like, I think more than anything else, for me, it highlights a gulf between just like my interests and other people's interests. I'm not insecure about it
Sure.
as much as just like I recognize that like, yeah, for gaming still has, even as mainstream as it is, it still has a ways to go before, it's a thing you can just talk to any of your neighbors about.
Sure.
But the thing is, like, when someone like kind of mocks it,
Mhm.
you do, you do what? Or your son plays,
Mm,
my
mhm.
son plays Minecraft. Like right there, that makes the conversation difficult then.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can't win that scenario.
Hang on. Dan Tech's horrified, ladies and gentlemen.
No, I just think that's incomprehensible to me to have that position. Like, everybody plays games. One of these people says that to you. He's like, your mom plays Candy Crush. Not in those words, but like it's crazy. Everybody plays something. All right, whether you're playing solitaire, Candy Crush, checkers, chess. Games are a pervasive element of human life, and they are only now becoming the billion-dollar business. This is like this is a real thing, and it's not it's not just something for little.
People like to push away from
I
it
know what
as a
they
gut
do.
reaction. I mean, trying to go out on the street for Man on the Street videos, it always happens where it's like, I don't play video games. And then you open that door a little bit, and it's like, I pour hundreds of hours into Pokemon on Game Boy back in the day.
But I
Like,
don't play
everybody
games.
has some nerd rabbit hole that they've gone down.
They do.
Yeah.
And like it's the same thing with what's happened, like, comics that are now the biggest movies.
Sure.
This is the same kind of thing of a genre, like moving into mainstream. It's absolutely nothing it's not immature at all. That's my take on it.
Yeah, take that. I get to get out of the gate with a joke, a nice icebreaker every time where I say, I make videos for a magazine. And then everyone's like, "Oh, how does that work?" And I was like, "Yeah, you think you're confused? Ask my grandma." And then we move on quickly.
You just run away.
That's right. If I move on quickly, I mean I run away. Khalid from Saudi Arabia has written in a lot, so I had to include one. Here we go. What caused the beginning of the universe? Khalid from Saudi Arabia.
Well, there's a lot of debate about that.
Yeah.
Leading
Big
theories.
Oh, going Big Bang. Okay, we talked about that earlier in the show. Dan, what's your
A
theory?
giant turtle.
Okay, Joe.
Yep.
There was no beginning.
I agree with Joe. This is the beginning right now.
Well,
Look, just play everything.
We're in a simulation. We're in a simulation right now,
There
right?
we go. Mike says, cheers. Ben and GI Crew, what's the best example of a word you had been reading for years only to find out you had been grossly mispronouncing it when you finally heard it out loud? Mike's example was aficionado, which I might have mispronounced right there. He says, I pronounced it... Right, how do you...
Affianciando. Affianciando.
My favorite Star Wars character.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Mine, I'm still going to botch it, but reading Catch-22 in middle school or high school, I forget, Bombardier, I constantly read as Bombardier, like over and over again. It still feels weird to say out loud. Are there any that stand out for you guys?
Hermione from Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess that's a name, but I mean, I think it was, how do you spell that? Hermione or something like that?
Yeah. I had been reading some I'd been reading some stuff in college that was like Greek stuff, and I had that not in Greek, but that like pronunciation in my mind, so I kept calling her Hermione.
Yeah, maybe it's something like that. But I think that's a pretty common one.
Joe says Junon instead of Junin in Final Fantasy 7. There's a good example.
Yeah, there's lots of those. For me, the two that stand out are Paradigm and Epitome, which I was
Epitome?
Paradigm and Epitome.
Paradigm.
I think I was a paradigm guy too.
Like at some point we're all paradigm guys.
Yeah.
What the hell's a paradigm?
And I couldn't even figure out in context what it would even mean. So I don't know why I didn't just look it up.
Oh God.
But anyway.
Randolph Sparks. Hello, GI Crew. This is Randolph from both New Jersey and the Overblood Group. You have to choose. Are you either in New Jersey or the Overblood Group, Randolph?
Well, we know which one. It's always the Overblood Group.
There we go. Seeing the divisive response that Yooka-Laylee has got has me thinking about what the future of 3D platformers is going to be moving forward. Like many, I have fond memories of playing them back in the PS1 and 64 days, but lately it seems like any attempt at the genre that isn't Mario related provokes fierce division, and I doubt that Voodoo Vince coming back is going to set the world on fire. So do you guys think that genre has a place in today's gaming landscape, or is it just an antiquated?
There we go.
Is it just a
Question.
Bombardier genre that the industry has simply evolved past? Look.
Well, the paradigm here is
Right. I understand that Yooka-Laylee, some people liked it more than others. I mean, for everything I played of that game, it just seems like, what do you guys want? This is as frustrating as those old Rare games used to be, as charming as those old Rare games used to be. Just because that Kickstarter didn't get 10 out of 10s out of the gate, the 3D platformer, it doesn't strike me as a genre where there are like inherent problems with it. Does that make sense? Like, you look at like an old adventure game, there's a classic problem of like, oh, puzzles, they're so hard, but I guess that's what people are nostalgic about. But just 3D platforming on its own isn't inherently frustrating in any way.
No, it works, right?
Yeah.
It's been bankrupt on ideas, I think, a little bit. And I think the Mario series is a perfect example of like Galaxy changing it up and being like, this is cool. I'm running around on little planets upside down. It worked. It was still Mario, the Princess, Bowser, but they did something different with it.
And to some degree, I feel like asking this question now is almost like coming to someone's like hospital bed after they've been in a coma for 10 years and being like, are they going to be okay? Like this genre has already been sort of like not flatlined, but has been dormant for like since PS2 basically is when it was really like thriving. So I don't think that there's a sign of like that you necessarily need to do head scratching. It's like, oh boy, we're at a real crossroads. I don't know what the future for this is. It's like the future is that it's a sort of style of game, a genre that has a lot of things about it set in stone, and that like if people can focus on those and play those old ones if they want to. But I don't think, like Reiner said, I don't think there's a lot of like big explosive stuff happening with it.
Yeah, and I think
Psychonauts 2.
yeah, well, Yooka-Laylee is the perfect example of set in stone. Too much of it was set in stone, right? Like too much of it felt archaic and confusing, and you didn't want that anymore, right? Like they needed to figure out some new solutions to that stuff.
Yeah.
I think the future will depend again on whether you can get fans who want it. That's what Kickstarter is all about, right? So old genres come back as long as people want them. So as long as the genre's not going to disappear, there's always going to be some niche guy looking for that 3D platformer.
Kickstarter has ensured no genre will ever disappear, no matter how
Really?
archaic it is.
Well, yeah, but like there's always been a sort of like ebb and flow of that stuff too. Like I mean, like we were saying, adventure games for a long time were just sort of gone, and now they're like getting remastered and new ones like Thimbleweed Park, and
They're
like,
doing new things with it, though.
and twists. I mean, like Gone Home, What Remains of Edith Finch are like offshoots of the adventure genre. Also.
Walking Dead,
So it's like,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Cameron says, "Hello, Mr. Hansen, please. Mr. Hansen's my mother. And the lovely ladies and gentlemen there. My name is Cameron from Arizona, the spooky estate," he says. I don't know how he knew that, Joe. And he says, "My question is, what do you think will have the bigger impact on open world games and games in general?" Ready? Between these two, biggest impact on open world games and games in general. Grand Theft Auto 5 or Breath of the Wild? Keep on rocking, he says. So GTA 5, great game. I think the 6 billion copies it sold has proven that people like it. Switching between characters is cool. I haven't seen too many other games pick up on that, being directly influenced by like the one or the biggest novelty of the GTA 5 experience. I'll go, even though it's early, Breath of the Wild. Reiner, you're a huge fan of both. What do you think?
I think developers are kind of scared to try to tackle something like Grand Theft Auto. That's a huge undertaking, and Rockstar knocked it out of the park. I think what Nintendo's doing is a little simpler, but they knocked it out of the park too. Even Ken Levine said, their first attempt at open world, and they did like one of the best open world experiences ever, right? Like, but what they did was kind of opened it up to the player to explore. So I think that's a little bit more manageable in terms of like
Of general philosophy?
and just development of like, we can create a big world and let the players explore that. It's a matter of doing it as well as Nintendo. Whereas Grand Theft Auto, that is like switching to 3 characters. It's all story driven. Every environment, I mean, every backyard in that game is different. They did so many things that
go underwater.
Yeah,
Something
there's
you
just
can't do in Breath of the Wild.
things. I mean, Rockstar goes big
For sure. But
Zelda's not on that scale.
But I could see like at PAX 5 years from now, more indies on the show floor can be like, yeah, we really like the open approach that Breath of the Wild had, the freedom to explore, multiplicative gameplay like Nintendo was talking about more so than, we decided to swap between 3 characters because it's wacky in GTA 5 did.
Yeah. And I mean, open world, I mean, if that is the trendsetter, like, I think we're going to see more games where it's just like, here you are on a mountain, go explore.
Awesome. You mean what games should be?
Yeah.
Joe Juba?
I haven't finished either game. I'm not gonna talk about
I know, but Joe Juba, you've been playing Breath of the Wild, and Joe's had 2 responses so far to this game. First response is, why don't they tell me how to do stuff? I don't know how to cook. Joe Juba here. And the second, which is just defiling everything that's holy about the game, he's like, is there any way to get the shrines to show up on this map? I need more clutter on my map. Juba, out.
This is not what Joe sounds like.
What? That's Joe.
I would say that my primary complaint about this game has to do with weapon degradation more than anything else. And I can't weigh in. I'm not far enough into the world to weigh in about how they, juggle that kind of stuff.
Right.
But
it's like seeing the face of God and complaining about his facial hair, Joe. That's the problem with talking about weapon degradation.
But the big takeaway is you hate Nintendo.
No.
And Nintendo fans.
I'm saying
Just straight up.
If this game were called Two Worlds Breath of the Wild instead of Zelda, it would have gotten 7s.
Boom. Boom.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Joe, do you
I'm
stand by
writing that
that or are
down.
you just being a dick?
Talk to me about it
Hates
later.
Nintendo fans.
Is that your theory that you're working off of right now?
Like
This
I
is
said,
good.
I'm going to lunge
I'm-
across this
I am-
MFing table.
I'm
I am
3
in
hours
love with
into this
this.
game, so we'll see how I'm.
You can't just throw a grenade into a room and then say, but look, at that grenade, I borrowed it.
That's my sense of it so far, but my opinion.
Holy God.
My opinion is ready to change.
How much
Ready
have you
to be
played,
wrong.
Dan
You
Tech?
know, I haven't played any yet
Oh.
Why not, Dan?
because I don't have a Switch.
Are you going to buy one?
No.
How are you going to play it?
I'm gonna borrow one.
Do you know how many Wii U's are floating around?
Well, I'm gonna find one. There's no. I'm obviously gonna play it this year.
Okay.
That's a done deal.
Get on it. I don't want this Stardew Valley crap where you're like, I'm waiting. I'm holding off till the year 2025.
There's no waiting. There's no waiting on this one. It will be done.
Have you still not played Stardew Valley?
Stardew Valley, no. I'll tell you what, Joe. I'll get to it right after like the 10 other games I have to do.
Two Worlds 2. Holy God. Tyler from Virginia says, hey guys, I know time to time you'll post movie articles on the website. Have you guys thought about doing movie reviews, even if it's just for fun?
Oh, boy.
Yes, we've done them.
Yeah, we have.
Not only did Andy bring up on that History of a Game Informer that there was discussion way back in the day of making a film informer, which I didn't know, which is very fun. But then also, like, it's been a while, but the Ratchet and Clank movie Kyle reviewed.
Mm-hmm. We reviewed the video game movies. We did that. What was that? Handgun Harry, me and
Hardcore Henry.
The old hairy handgun.
Pretty close.
Harry
Yeah.
handgun.
Or like, Tim Turry reviewed Terminator Genesis,
Yeah.
the ultimate hairy handgun.
When it's video game related, we get it in there. Yeah.
Sure.
Can someone doctor up a hairy handgun with like rare googly eyes on it for me?
There you go. It's gonna happen. It's
Oh,
you asked for it.
click,
But
boom.
Sci-Fi Weekly, we also review movie, and they're like,
What is
Arrival.
Sci-Fi Weekly?
It's a weekly column I do on science fiction every Tuesday.
And how often does it happen? No, sorry.
I wish it was. I wish it wasn't weekly.
I would love. A lot of work goes into it. It's amazing you're doing it every week. But just to razz you, what percentage of headlines for Sci-Fi Weekly have the word Star Wars in them? Is it 65%?
You're probably 65%.
Okay.
I wish it was like 100.
Yeah, that's
That's
true.
why I created that.
Star
column.
Wars, comma, some other
Star
stuff.
Wars and
Yeah.
Surf Star Wars website.
If there's any week where nothing important happens, you can just be like, let's
Star
talk about
Wars,
Star
yeah.
Wars.
Hey, Ben. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Mike said, hey, Ben and GI crew. I was painfully shy as a child, and I had the odd fear that I would somehow inadvertently win a meet and greet with my favorite star and spend the day not talking to them.
Wait, he was afraid of this happening.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you remember any odd fears you had when you were a child and stupid? Thanks. I love the podcast.
That has got to be like one of the weirdest irrational fears I've ever
I
heard.
kind of get it. Like, that horrific clip?
But how did you win it?
Look, I totally get it. I totally get it.
Why would you enter that contest?
I always have that fear of like, oh God, I hope I'm not called on the stage during this concert or any sort of thing ever called on in class. It's nightmare scenario. Like, that great Beyonce clip where she's at a concert and she's like walking around with the crowd and then she's singing this section. Look it up if you haven't. And she shoves the mic in a fan's face. And this lady just has a meltdown. Like, she's trying to explain to Beyonce, don't bring the mic to me. Don't bring the mic to me. And then she shoved the mic in her face and she just goes... But what stupid, odd fears.
Why would you make fun of someone for that?
It's amazing. It's prime internet cringe.
I hope you get humiliated on camera for all the world to see.
I
What do
aired
you
a
think he's doing right
Pokemon
now?
video at Action Live. I think I've hit my peak.
Oh no, your peak's yet to come.
Oh, thank you, Yoda. What is the biggest, most odd fear you had as a kid?
So my dad said, "Hey, Andy, go grab your sticker book," and I was like, "Okay." And I'm like 6 or 7 years old, and I was like, "Okay, I got my sticker book." He's like, "We're going to B. Dalton. You're going to go meet someone." I was like, "Cool." B. Dalton was this bookstore, a little bookstore in malls, right?
Mhm.
So I went there, and there's like all these kids hanging around, and all of a sudden, out of the back room, full on costume Darth Vader comes walking out,
Christ.
and I was just like, oh God. And I'm like hiding behind bookshelves and
Yeah.
stuff.
He's
like,
gonna
no.
force choke me.
Yeah, I was terrified. And my dad's like, go get him the sticker book. And so I'm in line and I give him the sticker book and Vader's just like, and he autographed my sticker book. And then I left. And I still have that sticker book with Vader's autograph and a picture of me just being terrified next to the biggest villain I ever knew as my child.
Baby
in my
Andy,
childhood.
I have really bad news for you. That wasn't the real Darth Vader.
Well,
You don't need to hold on to his autograph. It was
I
just
also
immediate.
nah, this is before Return of the Jedi. He was still,
Oh, I see. He's still alive back
good.
then.
I
That's
don't.
right.
I don't even think that's really an irrational fear or anything though either. That's like
Darth Vader?
Yeah, he's a big villain, right? If you're a kid,
Oh,
he's
man.
a
He's
scary
just
guy.
a chubby
Terrifying.
white guy. We saw the Return of the Jedi. How
yeah.
it goes.
Well, I don't know.
But yeah, that was like a crazy fear for me.
Yeah, I was scared of everything. I still am. But as a kid, it was just my entire childhood was defined by fear of ghosts and everything else. I didn't wear jeans until the 5th grade because I was scared of them. But I specifically was terrified of bathtubs growing up, and I think it was because of Ghostbusters 2. Remember when like the pink
That would
slime
be an irrational
reaches out,
fear,
like
yes.
grab them? Like I would just be so terrified of like when my mom would like drain the tub when I was super super young that I was going to get sucked down the tub and die.
Yeah, that qualifies. I
Just
think.
like a cartoon character, whoa, 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 would get like sucked down the drain. And I think it spawned from Ghostbusters 2 and just a general fear.
Well, that
of
movie is
stupid
bad. I'm
bathtubs.
scared of that movie too, but in a different way.
It's fun.
Mine is that when I was a kid and I would see advertisements for like "don't drink and drive" to sort of like scare, I did not understand that like alcohol is what they meant by drinking.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, I wasn't driving at this point, but like anytime in the car or anytime I'd see my mom like take a sip of soda while she was driving or something, I thought that like all of the scare stuff around "don't drink and drive," but like do not ingest any fluids while you are driving. This could be a serious problem.
Oh God, being a kid sucks.
So-
It's so confusing.
That's mine.
Dan, were you born an adult?
Yeah,
I was not born.
he's got
I was
nothing.
scared of plenty of stuff, but they all seem very
Commitment.
rational, like rabid animals, snakes,
Rabid
spiders.
animals.
things that could kill you.
Where'd you grow up? The bayou?
There was a forest. Yeah,
Okay, what else that's unreasonable?
I've been trying to think of an unreasonable one the whole time. I just can't think of anything that was
Owning a console?
I enjoyed owning a console back then.
All right, Dan, this question's for you.
Is it?
Anthony from Malvern, Pennsylvania. He says, hey, I just want to say I really enjoyed your conversation about movies last week. I know this is a podcast about video games, but it was great to hear you guys dive into another medium for quite a while to talk about Brick.
Are you trying to get us to do a movie spin-off podcast
He's really
here, Hanson?
trying
Is
to
that
do
what
that.
this is about?
Let's
When
do
are we
it.
finally going to get it going? Anyway, I have a game I would like you to play. Let's play a game. Can you rapid fire style list off each of the following directors and vote on their best movie? I've included my votes for comparison. His incorrect comparison. Not your personal favorite, but your opinion on their best work. So the following directors, their best work. Quentin Tarantino's best work.
Death Proof.
You
What?
mean that?
Yeah, I fucking love that movie.
That's-
It's surprisingly tense. It's effective for
It's-
the little
it's-
thing it is.
It's good.
Kill Bill 1 and 2.
You have to choose.
No, that's the same. It's the same movie.
No, it's not. They're two different films.
I'm gonna give it to him. It is the same
You
movie.
guys are out of your mind. Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Pulp Fiction too.
There we go. Wes Anderson. Rushmore.
Royal Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaums.
Yeah, Royal Tenenbaums.
You guys. Edgar Wright.
Wait, Life Aquatic.
Okay, incorrect. But Edgar Wright. Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that
What's his other stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Shaun
of the Dead.
yeah.
Anthony says Hot Fuzz.
Oh yeah, no, it's Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah. Okay, this hack doesn't deserve to be on here. Christopher Nolan.
Why doesn't he deserve to be on it?
I think he's wildly overrated. Dark Knight.
He produced some
No,
TV
he
show
was-
that's probably pretty good.
Inception.
Sure. Dan.
Dark Knight.
No.
He
Did he do the Prestige?
yes.
Yeah, I'll go with
Oh,
that
that
one.
was good too.
Yeah.
Anthony says Memento is the correct answer.
No.
Okay, another one. Guy Ritchie.
Oh boy, tough. All right, I got mine.
I have
Let's
nothing.
go with Lock, Stock.
There we go.
Yeah, Lock, Stock, Smoking
Snatch.
Bells.
I like that better.
Kevin Smith. Clerks.
Pass.
What?
Just
Man.
kidding.
Yeah, Clerks is.
Chasing Amy was touching.
Whoa, no.
Really? A lot of
No.
people think Chasing Amy is his best
So
film.
it's very low. I mean, above the movies that are like like Jersey Girl and stuff like that. It's one on the lower end.
How
of
does it
things.
compare against Yoga Hosers? Which we
Cer-
were going to watch
certainly-
together, and then you
certainly
stabbed
better-
me in the back and watched it without me.
I waited like 6 months. I'm sorry. I'm busy, man. I'm sorry.
He really had to watch Yoga Hosers.
I really had
Fingers
to.
on that remote.
You can
Gotta
only
hit play.
rewatch Paul Blart so many times.
I only seen it once.
All right, what's your favorite email? What do you guys like?
Irrational Fears.
Yeah, I
That's
like
a
the
weird one.
Irrational
Yeah, that was
Fears one.
good.
Do you like that? All right. That goes...
Director one was fun.
Director one
I
was
agree.
fun.
So that's Mike, Mr. Irrational Fear himself.
What was
Congratulations.
his Kevin Smith movie, by the way? You never told us.
Clerks.
Good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what were all of his?
Inglourious Bastards, Inglourious Bastards, Grand Budapest Hotel, Hot Fuzz, Memento, Lock, Stock, Clerks. Thanks, Anthony from Oliver, and that was a fun one. But for now, we are going to talk all about the ending of Mass Effect Andromeda. We closed out this game club. Joel will stick around. Some other folks will be there. Some folks won't. So stay tuned for that. Hello and welcome back to Game Informer's GI Game Club for Mass Effect Andromeda. We're here. We're at the finish line. Joe Juba, champion of the people, is here.
Yeah.
Elise Favis.
Hey.
J.V. Gwaltney.
Oh, thank God we're done.
How dare you? We're not done yet. We have a lot of Mass
We're
Effect
almost
talk to
done.
get through. I don't like that attitude out of the gate. People love Joe being here because he brought some knowledge, some positivity, some good vibes. Unfortunately, Ben Reeves jumped off a bridge. He could not quite finish the game. No, he's out of town, so he couldn't finish it off, which is very
Who's the
sad.
quitter now? It's Ben Reeves, not me.
Official Game Club.
Dang it,
canon.
Reeves.
Oh, Lord. Okay, so this episode we're talking about basically just the last third of Mass Effect Andromeda. The little ditty. Like, for the main quest, it's just Journey to Meridian and then basically the ending, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really short main campaign stuff.
But there's a ton of mopping up to do. Elise, you have been messaging me a lot, worried about whether or not you're going to finish in time. How did your mad dash to the finish line go?
It went fine. I mean, there was a lot of side quest stuff that I didn't manage to wrap up that I wanted to.
Yeah.
But I got to the ending, so.
Don't worry, Joe has mopped up every nook and cranny of this game.
I've done a lot of mopping.
I
So
honestly,
much mopping.
what I plan to do is I plan to go back. Like, I have a save like right before the end mission.
Oh, yeah?
So I'm gonna go back and like wrap up some of the side stuff.
Perfect. JV, you going back?
No, I finished the game last night, was relieved when the credits rolled, and then immediately deleted it from my system and will probably never play it again.
JV?
Rough.
I don't hate it. It's just like this will
Sounds
be
like
the
you-
first BioWare game I don't think I'll play more than once.
Sonic Duck Brotherhood. We are going to talk about overall thoughts, a lot of community emails on that topic. First off, we have a lot of odds and ends that people wrote into podcast@gameformer.com. Seems like a good opportunity to kind of do some more mopping.
Let's do it.
Mechanics first. John Resek says, I feel that the crafting is an important part of the game that you guys have been skipping over. It can get you some of the best guns in the game. Take your favorite gun, you can add things like vintage heat sink that makes it like the original Mass Effect where you don't have to worry about ammo, or make it to where you can blind fire your shotgun from in cover and almost always hit the target because the rounds track the target. I had no idea. I don't think I did any crafting. Joe, have we really been missing out?
Yeah. I mean, he's. Did you say it was a he?
John.
John is totally right. Yeah, I mean the crafting is how you get the high end stuff in the game. I think what makes it intimidating is that you just have this huge list of different things you can craft, and I think we did touch on this, that the game doesn't do a great job of communicating like why you might want to pursue one gun over another gun or armor in terms of like, okay, so like how is this different than what I have? Why is it better?
Yeah.
Why it's better when you craft it is that you get, if you just pick up a gun, its stats are its stats. If you craft a gun, you get slots for augmentations that add some of those special properties that he's talking about.
Interesting.
Which are different from mods. It was confusing at first because there are augmentations and mods. And mods you can equip to any gun that you pick up. Augmentations are like abilities that you actually give your weapon when you craft it.
Did you guys fall in love with any specific weaponry or specific loadout with your grand finale here?
Yeah, I like modded my Piranha shotgun so that it just had more. It fired faster, so it was more like a machine gun than a shotgun.
Oh, the machine gun shotgun,
yeah,
of course.
Yeah, I really dug that.
Yeah, I really liked in the previous Mass Effect games. I really liked the particle rifles, or maybe it was just in Mass Effect 3.
You've always been a bit of a particle man.
Yeah, exactly. So there's a gun called the PAW in there that is that's a particle rifle that nice. I pretty much would like max out. I like crafted the first level of it, and then like every 10 levels I would pretty much like recraft it with better stuff and keep doing it. So
yeah, that was like I actually spent a fair amount of time crafting weapons, but I also feel like this is another issue with the game where, you know, that it spends the first 2 or 3 hours hitting you with tutorial after tutorial after tutorial. And I just really didn't feel like it was that rewarding to actually gather the materials for the crafting because, you know, you have to go explore the galaxy and do the whole deploy like pods and stuff. And it was just a lot of busy work.
You don't need
stuff.
to do that at all.
Joe's calling BS.
All right. What is it? What's the BS?
No, I mean, it's just through exploration, you like find those things. You can also buy materials if you're running short on them and stuff. Because like you can get crafting materials that way by doing the like space travel and pods and stuff, but that is not an efficient way to do it.
Well, I mean, there was more. I did more than just that. Like I talked to merchants and stuff, but it still felt like a lot of busy work. Like, okay, going from planet to planet to planet instead of just having like I actually would have liked it even if there was like an upcharge for that vendor that's on the ship just to buy like any of the materials I needed, even if it was like a ludicrous like credit upcharge. Like I felt like that would have been ideal.
I never hit a wall like that. Because like for me it was just like I did a bunch of exploring, had a bunch of materials, so then when I wanted to craft a thing I generally had what I needed for it. If you're like really diving into crafting and you want to experiment a lot, and I think this is a problem in the way the game sort of discourages that kind of experimentation is that like you don't have the research points or the materials to really craft a lot of different things and see what you can get.
Yeah. Another mechanics thing, Kevin from Georgia It says, one of the biggest annoyances I've endured since the game went on was the lack of boss variety. It's either the Ascendant Ket with the annoying orbs or the Remnant Architects on almost every planet. I got excited when I went to Eldin because of that terrifying Dune Worm, but you don't get to fight it, and it can't even hurt you. It just phases through you if it hits. Terrible missed opportunity.
Not come across that last one, but I can agree the guy with the orb is incredibly infuriating.
It was a lot of taking pot shots at that stupid orb.
No, but the thing is, it uses so much of your bullets, so you're running around too, trying to be like, okay, can I, get some of those back? And then you're going back and hitting him again. And, I don't know.
Joe?
Not a fan. Not a fan.
I did not like. I feel like the boss fights are a larger discussion for the whole game too. But like, I did not have a single satisfying boss fight.
What about in the last game club, that guy wrote in and said you can unlock some great boss fights, the best boss fights in the game, by doing some special stuff? Are there larger boss fights on the planets, like the behemoths or whatever? Is that what this Doom Worm is?
Yeah, the architects are what he's talking about.
Oh, I see.
But the problem with those is they're all basically. There's some environmental factors that make them different, but the fights are pretty much the same from one to the next. And I guess they're cool. The fights are cool in the sense they're big monsters that are, but just from a mechanical standpoint, and that's something that Mass Effect has always sort of struggled with.
Yeah, that's why why it didn't really bother me. I think, that doesn't necessarily get Andromeda off clean here, but I can't honestly recall a single boss fight across any of the other 3 games. So I was like, yep, this is great mechanically, especially the big mutant baby thing at the end of Mass Effect 2.
It's mutant baby.
There are no boss fights in Mass Effect Andromeda that are as bad as that. So
yeah, okay. I don't think it's something the series is known for, so I agree, I can shrug it off.
Yeah.
Nothing's that notable.
The only boss we have to worry about is the elusive man. Speaking of which, Alex from Brazil writes in and says, hey guys, loving the game despite technical problems on PS4. Some side missions in Kadara make some great references to the original trilogy I thought you guys should know, including Cerberus. On Kadara, the mission Mind Games is the first to reference Cerberus and the elusive man. You'll find 2 ex-Cerberus scientists doing experiments on mind control. They say they left Cerberus among other things because they were too concerned about bringing people back from the dead. A reference to the events from the beginning of Mass Effect 2. You can choose to turn the experiment against them, shut it down, or leave them to it. I left them to it. So overall, as far as connections to the original trilogy, it seems like front and center is the dad storyline.
Yeah.
Joe, I didn't finish those memories. Can you tell me exactly what all the memories are and what the conclusion to that storyline is?
Okay, it's been a little while since I've seen it, actually. So, but as I remember, really what they're hinting at there is that there's sort of a mysterious backer behind the Andromeda Initiative.
Okay.
So in addition to your dad and what's her name, the woman who died, that Tan took her place.
Right. I'll find it.
But they're sort of the visionaries behind the Andromeda Initiative, but then there's this sort of shadowy person who's funding it.
Right.
I don't know that they say it outright. I guess the connection I made is there's a good chance that's the elusive man or Cerberus behind
a lot of people wrote in questioning that. Yeah.
But that's really what it all sort of culminates in, is the idea that someone believed that the Andromeda Initiative was important to get off the ground to sort of basically have a plan B for humanity in case the Reaper thing went poorly.
And you think that's just, it's fine as it is, just a subtle nod, you can connect it to the elusive man if you want, or do you feel like it's a stepping stone to a larger storyline?
That's a good question. I think that they leave it open for it to become more significant or not. Mm-hmm. I think it can go either way, and I don't get the sense that there's some large predetermined story hiding behind that I just can't wait to uncover.
Right.
But maybe they decide to take that in some cool directions.
Yeah, for sure. So Dylan writes in and says, hey, Ben and crew, thanks for doing this. I know that everyone has had fun in this adventure. Looking at you, JB. Everyone else is having a great time. I was wondering if anyone finished the Know Your Enemy side quest and made a deal with the Ket. If you do this, you can choose to knock out the Ket second-in-command's ship on the final mission on Meridian with the codes they give you. I was disappointed that even though I made a deal with the Ket, no one seemed even kind of upset with me since we have no promise of a sequel. It was disappointing that I did not see the consequences of my actions. Yeah, Joe, do you remember that Know Your Enemy sideline?
Well, for me, what was a little disappointing about that is I'd beaten the game already, so I didn't get to really see. I followed it through, but I was sort of I don't know. I don't think I ended up making the deal with them anyway. But I didn't know that was the potential consequence for it because like I finished the game.
Do they recontextualize any missions if you do them after you beat the game?
In some ways, yes. There are missions that make reference to the fact that like, oh, well, we already have Meridian. We've made some good progress, but we need to keep working.
Okay, that's nice.
Things like that.
That's neat.
Yeah.
I like that.
Joe, despite your plea, we had one email about multiplayer. So I'm counting on you here, buddy. Carter Hansen says, I find it pretty funny how almost every review for this game talks about how great and diverse the combat gameplay is and then fails to spend more than 2 sentences talking about the multiplayer component. The multiplayer offers the same fluid combat system, but instead of fighting with squad mates you can barely control, you fight alongside your friends online you can actually communicate and synchronize your powers with. If you have a group of friends, you can regularly play co-op games with you're pretty much guaranteed to have a blast with the game. So he's a huge fan. He feels like people aren't talking about it enough. Seems like you feel the same way, Joe.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I actually haven't spent as much time with it as I would like to, but I've put in, I don't know, several hours at least. And I think what makes it partially worth talking about is that like he says, it is a lot of fun. It's the same fluid combat, all that stuff. But one reason why I think it's easy to shrug off is it is super similar to Mass Effect 3's multiplayer also.
Yeah.
So the big thing that I think differentiates Andromeda's from 3's, if you assume that like, hey, the basic structure of the combat, the co-op stuff, all that is still fun, still good. The big distinguishing thing is I really like the way they did the tie-in to the single-player campaign.
So what do you get in the single player if you played a lot of multiplayer?
You get basically like items, money. If you interact with the multiplayer stuff, you can basically just like that has light feed into like Ryder's mission. So as strike teams complete missions, one of the rewards they can get is like item boxes. And you don't use those item boxes in multiplayer. Ryder uses those item boxes in single player. So it's not like you're missing out on all of these big exclusive items if you don't do it.
Yeah.
But if you do it, it's nice to sort of to like get that reward beyond just feeding into multiplayer exclusively.
Interesting.
So
All
I
right.
like that.
Yeah, I played it a little bit. It seems all right. I'm curious like what the hook is. Is it just if you're not worried about feeding into your single player, you just enjoy the process of unlocking new characters, playing with new races.
Yeah. And like it's fun because, so like we talked about in the last episode, there's something that is kind of frustrating about Ryder's skill set because it's just so vast and it doesn't give you a good sense of how to focus.
Totally.
That's one of the things that makes multiplayer interesting is the characters come with much smaller predetermined skill sets.
Yeah.
Which means that different kits are basically designed to work in maybe a couple different ways. So it's just a more fun way to get you to like really see different play styles distilled into like, these are the abilities that would be important if you're trying to do this thing. There's one that's like, for instance, is geared towards aerial combat. It's like, I hardly ever, except to get the trophy, did like hovering and shooting.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know why you would, except there is a build called the Havoc Trooper in multiplayer that is like, that is what it does. And so it's a fun way to sort of like experiment with that playstyle.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And even anecdotally, I was amazed how helpful just random people that I was playing with were. Like when I was down, they were reviving me within seconds. Like it was a good team.
Interesting. I find multiplayer basically unplayable unless I'm playing with like people I know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, to each their own.
Yeah.
So Nick Lopez really gets to the heart of it here. In the Facebook group, he said, the watching awful movies scene in Mass Effect Andromeda is one of my favorite moments in recent years. The end of this long quest to finally watch awful movies with the crew. Elise, did you get to that finish line? Oh, no!
And I so badly wanted to.
Joe,
but,
can you reenact it all?
No, but I wanted to continue it, but I wasn't like continuously getting the prompt fast enough, like for continuing it.
It was trickling it out.
Yeah, exactly. So
Okay.
I'm just like, bummer, like I still have to make this like mad rush and I can't do this thing I really want to do.
I know. Joe, can you tell us a little bit about that scene?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a cool moment. It's really a lot of, it's kind of like that moment. It isn't this good, but you know how in Citadel, the DLC for Mass Effect 3, it gives you that chance to like, hey, this is just you and your party members kind of hanging out and having a good time.
I think like Citadel DLC is one of my top Mass Effect moments of all time.
It's great. And this is, and like I said, this is not that good. I don't think it touches that level, but it's the same kind of goal of just like the idea is letting your crew get together and just sort of having a fun time.
I know we talked about it a ton on the cover story trip, Joe, but I'm still just fascinated because I played the Citadel DLC finally right before going on that trip. And it's amazing that everyone's like, oh, it's great. That entire DLC is just like a party. You're getting drunk. It's everything you want. But it's like, no, there's a whole plot about a clone shepherd and like trying to take down this.
It's very Saints Row.
No one ever remembers or talks about that. It's like, whatever. I guess they cloned Shepard. Hey, but you get drunk with this Krogan. It's hilarious.
Well, I mean, I think that's actually a testament to like that is what people take away from Mass Effect.
100%.
Right? Like they like the characters, they like the story, and
I think especially with Andromeda this time around, I did not feel much of a connection to the main story arc, but I just kept progressing for those little moments. You know, like at one point, Jal comes up to me and he's like, "I'm making little gifts for everybody," and I'm just like, "This is so cute."
little gifts.
I mean, he is a giant cat. Like it's just very cute.
I was really liking Jal until I saw him shirtless.
Weird nipples? What are we talking about?
It's like bone structures coming out where.
Slow down.
Like.
Wait, it's just a bunch of weird bones?
It almost looks like bone structure for like boobs or something, but not really. I don't know. I can't explain.
And they're
it.
weird,
just,
it's concave in weird places, and
I don't know. It just kind of comes out anyway.
But is it weirder than like seeing like a Solarian or Turian naked? Like I don't know.
No, not really.
Yeah, like
except I feel like Jal is maybe more frequently naked than those characters.
Andrew J.W. Thompson writes in with a killer email just saying, I saw PB's everything and Cora's. Hey, yo. Very adult, Andrew. Thank you for letting us know you saw PB's everything. Mike G has a similar comment saying, love the banter, especially in the Nomad between characters. That part where PB fakes an orgasm to see if Jal is actually sleeping is a classic.
What?
And I didn't know what he was talking about, so I looked it up. Faking an orgasm might be strong. It's not exactly when Harry met Sally, but the idea is they think Jal fell asleep in the Nomad, so PB starts like pretending that she's having sex with Ryder. It is a bizarre scene. I would play a clip, but this is a family-friendly show.
Is that if you like hook up with PB?
I would assume so, yeah.
I didn't get
weird.
that.
Okay.
And then Jal's like, I was not sleeping, I was faking, just like you.
Nice.
Did you guys get some good romantic payoffs? JV?
Yeah.
I actually really liked the relationship my writer had with Vetra because it's not very it's interesting because it's not that sexual like driven, like there's romantic scenes and stuff, but it's never like they're gonna now. You know, there's no like scene where it's like, you know, like in the original Mass Effect there's a very slow-mo shot with, you know, Shepard having sex with whoever you choose, but in this one it's just like no, they're sitting out above like some spring somewhere on a mountain and like they kiss once and then they have a very heartfelt
mountain. Wow.
Well, they still F though.
I mean,
I Vetra's my romantic option.
mean,
I
didn't see it.
It's a very disappointing scene. It's a fade out and then you hear like a
Suvi was also
wow.
I
No,
romanced Suvi and it just kind of fades out.
yeah,
weird.
But it is a nice scene with them on Kadara. They're like, oh, there's this great spot up here. We have to rock climb to get to it. And then Vetra's like, whatever you do, don't use those dumb jet boots you have. You're like, okay, I won't. You keep rock climbing. And then you have like the renegade trigger option to cheat and use the little jet boots.
I think it's a very nice callback to
that's
Mass
awesome.
Effect 3 too, when you're like sitting on the ridge with Garrus and you're like, you can let him win with the shooting.
But again, it's another, like, I don't know if that's a callback as much as it is like
Rehashing.
Like, yeah, it's like, oh, here's female Garrus again.
Thank you. It is female Garrus. And
You say this like it's a bad thing.
I mean,
I was never really that into Garrus as most
Well,
everyone's
you're
gonna hate me
wrong.
for saying
No,
that. But
I really like Garrus, but like I
As
also
a
like
good
variety
friend.
in characters.
There's the payoff with Vetra after you make sweet love to her weird bony face. Like the next day, I believe she makes you a steak. And it's just like burned to a crisp.
It's terrible.
It's just this weird thing. And so Vetra's like, what are you talking about? It's cow. And the writer's like, Earth cow? And Vetra like pauses and is like, it just said cow on the packet. It's just like this weird thing. Like, what is this animal?
She gets real sad because she knows that she blew it. and-
Yeah.
yeah.
That was one of my favorite moments from the game,
that's
actually.
good.
Yeah, I reloaded some saves. I saw Vetra, I saw PB, and I saw Jal in terms of the...
Did you see Jaw's everything?
You see a lot of everything.
Really?
With Jal.
Doesn't make
Yeah.
sense, but you see it.
Yeah.
Who is the best romance option? I think we said it in the main podcast, but you said one of them, like, it's just full tops off. compared to fading out.
Well, no, I mean, so that's what was weird. It's like Vetra, and I guess I didn't see Suvi's, but if she fades out, other ones just, I mean, they just don't fade out. Like PB doesn't fade out, Jal doesn't fade out. It's just like, I mean, they're not showing, you're seeing butts, but you're not seeing straight up like weird alien genitals flopping around or anything like that.
I'm out.
Yeah, come on. What's the point of playing Andromeda?
Yeah.
It might be pervy, but it is still exciting to get to that point of like, I think this is it. I think this is when they're going to do it.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like Mass Effect's always had that sort of thing built into it, though, like that pervy element. So I don't feel like it's too weird.
Back of the box.
It also just sort of feels weird, though, in the same way that like the way games build relationships between characters has moved into a more narrative focused thing rather than like I'm moving their affection meter up and up or something. It still feels weird to me that the culmination of that is still like, well, we all know that the culmination of a relationship is when you have sex. You know,
sex
like,
sells.
Yeah.
That's totally it.
Yeah.
Cha-ching, cha-ching.
It's also kind of an awkward situation. I guess this was true with Shepard, too. It feels like writers violating so many HR rules, like just going around hitting on everyone on the ship.
Right when she arrives, like right when she's meeting everybody, she's just like, "So dinner later."
Yeah, she's walking around pinching butts and stuff.
No HR in this entire galaxy, JV, up top.
Yeah, I don't know. To JV's earlier point about Vetra's romance, though, like I kind of wish it did. I wish that were the end of that thread. You know, like it always feels so artificial that, like, well, now we have to put on a sex scene versus actually sort of just having a relationship feel more like it's actually
still feels
people connecting. You know,
like that's your final goal. It still feels kind of gamey.
Yeah, for sure. Marcus Roberto says, what do you think about the chats between characters in the Nomad? Sometimes I openly laughed with their interactions.
Oh, I loved it.
I think that's the best, like the best writing happens during those chats.
That was some of
shockingly.
the best banter.
Especially with Vetra and Jal. Like they just have such heartfelt conversations.
When he starts talking about Sid and he's like, I admire like, you know, that your relationship with Sid and stuff, and then I don't know. Did you get to that?
Yeah. Like Vetra
she's like, oh, Sid's so annoying. And he's like, oh, you shouldn't be ashamed of how you feel for your sister.
It's very much like a bickering couple where Vetra's like very sort of Hemingway
kind of comes around too.
Yeah.
Like
and Jal's like, no, it's okay. Don't be ashamed of your
feelings.
feelings.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I ditched Jal. He wasn't really pulling his weight
You didn't
emotionally.
like the cat jellyfish?
I did not care for the cat jellyfish. And I put Drac in there, and then Drac's like offering to raise Vetra and Sid. It's very sweet. Like, I wish you could have been our daddy.
I felt very close to Jal. I like Jal.
Yeah?
I like Jal.
I kept waiting for something. There's nothing.
I liked pretty much everyone except Cora and Liam, who are the worst. Like they are basically Ashley and Caden all over again. And I wish there was a Burmeyer to leave them to die.
I don't care for Liam at all.
There are some Liam defenders out there.
Don't read their emails.
Okay, yeah. I
ban their email addresses.
Immediately. Nick Ludeman says, I was about to commit my relationship to Cora, that's a weird way of phrasing it, until she said, quote, Asari think in terms of centuries, or something along those lines. Jeez, what a boring ass character. Can she only talk about Asari and how she's not a Pathfinder?
Yes.
JV, you seem passionate about how much Cora sucks.
Yeah, it's like if you had a drinking game for however many times she said the word Asari, you'd be dead within like any conversation you have with her, because it's just, she really wants to be one of the Asari.
Yeah. Charles Hartford, I'm listening to the Game Club and you guys are talking about your choices not affecting how your party reacts to you. There may be more to this than you realize. I played Drax's loyalty mission where at one point he dangles a man off a building, which was one of the earliest teasers they showed for this game, which is fun to see. I told Drax to not drop him so we could bring him back to the Nexus for trial. He agreed. I was looking in the codex later under Drax and it mentioned that because of Drax's respect for what I had already done, he had agreed to spare his life. I'm playing the scene could have gone otherwise. I thought this was really cool. So there might be more flexibility than we even realize.
Yeah, but if like the ultimate, culmination of that is like, oh, a codex entry changes like 2 sentences, that's not that interesting to me.
No, that supports the point that we had from the beginning.
Well, no, I think that's just saying that, but I think he's saying that there's more data being churned under the surface for him making that decision or not than we think. Also, the Turian arc. I finished this because I could finally go to the last 2 planets and whatnot. I did not rescue I'm sorry, Turian? Yeah. At the end of the Turian arc section, the whole thing about seeing the other Turian with Sam that died and the Sam's trying to lead on the mission, all that stuff. And then it's like, we want you to become the new Turian Pathfinder. And I said, hey, that's a good idea. Become the new Turian Pathfinder. And then he's like, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And walked away. And that was the end.
Yeah.
What should I have done differently there?
No, that's what happened to me.
I made those same choices, and he was like, "Fine, I'll do it."
See, I think there's more under the hood.
No, I didn't. What I chose was I was like, hey, it's kind of up to you. Like, I'm not gonna force you.
Okay.
And then he's just like, I can't do it. So,
Joe, do you know what that is? Because I would like to have had the Turians there at the end, and they were not there.
Oh no! I mean, he was a Pathfinder for me, so I don't know. I don't know what changed one way or the other. But again, I guess part of this is like part of the problem under this then is if you don't even know what choices you're making, like how they're impacting, like it isn't enough to just say, hey, this can be different. This can have different outcomes. If we're all scratching our heads being like, oh, it happened this way for me and I don't know why or how, then there's a gap in communication to the player there that is like, even if your choices are having an impact, if you don't know what that is, it's not really satisfying.
I agree, but on the other hand, there's something that always bothered me with the original trilogy of just seeing, like, I don't like to see the matrix underneath the game. And so if it is a little more nebulous, I'm almost on board for that. I don't like the idea of, like, I know exactly because I failed Samar's loyalty mission, that's why.
But you should still be able to make sense of it on some level.
Right. I feel like I appreciate both. Like, I do think there should be some nebulousness there, like not knowing where the choices will go. But, like, once a choice happens or an effect happens, you understand how you got there. Like, with the Tali Geth thing in Mass Effect 3, like, there is no way I could have predicted that Tali would kill herself if I made the choice that I did. But when she did, I was like, wow, I screwed up, but it makes sense. That tracks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mike Foster says, I just have to say, I don't get why everyone seems to be putting MEA down. It's a great new foundation that leaves you wanting more, partly to a lot of unanswered questions. Like, who killed the founder, JG, as he puts it? What is the source of the Scourge, and why is it here? Who are the Jardan? Why Remnant tech looks a lot like Prothean tech? What were the other races that the Kett assimilated? And so on and so on. So he sees it as just a great foundation for more storylines.
Yeah.
Also, Jake Dunand asked the simple question: do you think the Elusive Man was a mysterious benefactor for the Andromeda Initiative? Unclear, but probably.
I mean,
Potentially, yeah.
That is a safe guess, I think.
Yeah.
But not necessarily either.
Yeah. Since we're getting kind of into the ending here, JV, I have a pop quiz for you.
Okay.
I'm not trying to throw you under the bus.
All right.
I think it's the game's fault.
All right, do it.
What is Meridian?
Meridian is the magical planet MacGuffin thing that turns all the other planets on and makes them, a place you can have life.
Very good.
Yeah.
That's better than I thought. It's just so much towards the end is about Meridian. I feel like even with the brother, they have opportunities to kind of set the scene and just have like bits of exposition for like, okay, here's exactly what this is. But even on that first mission, the Journey to Meridian, where it's like, this isn't the real Meridian. We need to go find the other real Meridian. It's like, I don't really know what this is. And a lot of people wrote in so confused about like, why does the Archon want this? What is this whole system? I guess it's just the ultimate MacGuffin, like an on or off switch for good versus evil.
Yeah, it's really weird. Man, the Archon is just a bummer of a villain, right? Like,
really,
he's just
really
like,
is, yeah.
all he needed was some cackling during that final boss fight. It's just, that was the worst part of that fight for me. It wasn't even that it was like, okay, this is just not really that enjoyable, but to have that asshole just screaming things at you incessantly, nonstop until the fight was over.
He is just impossibly lame. Like, he makes Oryx from Destiny seem subtle and nuanced. Like, he literally, I wrote down some of the crap he was saying. It was just nonsense.
Absolutely nothing to him.
No! He says, you continue to defy your limitations. Impressive. Just constantly, like, awkwardly putting you down. Like, my God, you are more powerful than I imagined, but I'm more powerful than you still. What is this trash?
Like, even Saren, who sort of occupied this cop who's gone bad archetype, he still had a personality. He still had clearly understandable motives that were also sympathetic.
Yeah.
You were sympathetic to him, even though he was sort of stereotypical. This guy, he's just hollow. Like, you can knock him over. He's so flat.
Well, who can forget when he just screams, Meridian, the network, I'm so close. And then goes on to Eos will burn. It's like, that's what you want, is to destroy the planet that we touched a little bit of? Joe, you seem to be...
No, Elise was going to say something.
Please.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's almost surprising to me that they would have such a flat, evil character after I felt like BioWare's done some decent villains, and now, like... I've really enjoyed the Elusive Man personally.
Yeah.
And coming into this, I'm just like, that's so odd. It feels like such a step back, and I don't really understand why.
I was holding out hope because like for the Elusive Man
I was too.
The Elusive Man is interesting, but he gets really I think he gets more interesting at the end of Mass Effect 3 when sort of everything is laid bare with him and you're like, okay, so I was holding out hope for the Archon that this sort of like cartoonish supervillainy would sort of give way to something that was more interesting.
Yeah.
And instead, because we're here talking about that whole final sequence, basically from like when Ryder like wakes up without Sam forward, I was just so mad at the game because it had gone from at least sort of giving you like explanations that even if they didn't make perfect sense, were sort of like, hey, don't think about it too much. Like, yeah, you can hack into stuff. Don't worry about it. You know?
Right.
But it got to the end and there was just this confluence of things that I did not understand why they were happening the way they were, why characters were doing what they were.
Totally.
They're just like so intrinsically evil and there's nothing beyond those motivations. So I can't really, I just did not care for much.
Yeah. I feel like they fall into the trap of the writers did of like, well, this race is obviously super religious and fanatic, and like that's their core thing.
Even the reveal about the Angaran being basically like made by the Ket was I just kind of shrugged and I was like, all right, is this a twist? Okay.
Because it leaves you saying like, so what? Okay, so they were engineered. Like, why is that important? Explain this.
And
like, show this.
Even Jal at one point it kind of starts getting over it a little bit, and he's like, well, in the end, does it matter where we come from? It's more about like who we are and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah.
And that post-credit sequence where, because post-credit sequences are usually like, oh yeah, we're gonna get hyped up, and then it's just some other Ket guy that I can't remember walking towards you.
Yeah, that's
I was like, what is this supposed to mean? Why do I give a shit? I don't.
The Ket are still out there, which you already knew. So here are my big questions about the end.
Well, you know what? I wonder if that's just like a tease being like, hey, there might be some sort of sequel. We might continue in this cluster in the future.
Yeah. Joe, before you get to those, could I read off some thoughts on this similar topic? Nick, Darth Archerius says, the Archon story arc was more like an arc off rather than an arc on. Boo. Thank you. Barbara Welazak says, even after 50 plus hours of gameplay, I still don't understand what the Archon's real goal was. He presumably wanted to convert everyone into Ket, but he says at the end he'll take control of Meridian and turn every planet into the cluster into a wasteland. There's some shifts I don't understand. Cassie Maley from the Facebook group has a lot of passionate thoughts. Just real quickly, the ending to Mass Effect Andromeda sucked. The Archon's master plan is to invade the Nexus and not destroy it or kill people like the Tempest crew, but just to kidnap your brother. Worst alien bad guy ever. Did anything even get that damaged? Why wouldn't you just blow stuff up? A boss battle with 3 waves of enemies? The Archon has been built up to be the final boss, and 90% of that fight, I hardly looked at him while I tried ducking in and out of cover to fight the same grunt enemies over and over. An abrupt ending, not discussing things like, I don't know where the godlike alien race went or how the hell you can control remnant tech without Sam. Cassie really hated Andromeda, if you can tell.
Yeah.
Joe, what are your lingering
Cassie
questions?
hit on several points there for me.
Okay, good.
Things like, especially things like, why can you operate remnant tech without Sam? Because it has been explicitly pointed out the whole time that you need him to do this.
That was odd.
My least favorite thing in all fiction is when a character is like struggling with something and I have no concept of how difficult that is. So like it is just so stupid to have Ryder like putting the hand in there with the nose, be like, I can do it, I can seal. It's like, I don't know what you're supposed to be feeling. I don't know what it was to begin with. And now that you don't have Sam, you can still do it. I have no idea what that means. I don't know how challenging this is for you. Nothing.
And beyond things also like the Archon's motives overall, which I think are, like if you look into it, I think you can figure it out. But it is not presented in a clear or satisfying way. Also, like, why did activating a few consoles, which turned off some power, kill the Archon?
I thought there was going to be an Archon fight beyond that. Like, I didn't even know that he was up in that thing.
I even like just the option to have like Ryder walk over to his weak, ailing body and like choose to shoot him or imprison him would have been more satisfying. Like just something besides, well, he got unplugged and he's dead now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone turned the Archon off.
But JV, maybe you're forgetting how much he hated you. That's the thing. Like, Ryder should have just been like this confusing alien thing to him. But like, what are you doing? Who cares? Like, the Archon would have been so much cooler if he just barely cared about Ryder. But the whole storyline of like, you're the greatest that I've ever seen. Truly, you're my one true rival. It's
So
like, who the hell cares?
This is one thing I want to bring up though, because like I think the main campaign, story-wise, is pretty much like the weakest part of this game.
Oh,
yeah.
And we've been hammering on this a lot.
For sure.
But the other stuff that we've been tackling, like I still had a lot of fun like doing like the non-main story quest stuff.
Me too.
I liked the sort of routine of like going to a planet, doing the exploration, doing quests there, like bringing it up to viability, doing the outposts. Like to me, that's how this game feels like Mass Effect. Though I feel like the ending decidedly does not feel like what I like about Mass Effect.
All right, Joe. Let me ask you this: how do you feel about that epilogue?
I like the epilogue.
Oh man, really? Because I fucking hated it so much.
Why is that?
Because it's just the epilogue because Elise you haven't seen it, right, Elise?
Hey, she's on the game club.
Yeah.
Yeah, get out.
Sorry, Elise.
Yeah.
Spoiler City. We got to do it.
But it's basically like a boring work party after you save the world, where you're just walking around talking to some people in like a small place, and it is a party. And you have some dialogue, and all of it basically amounts to, we had a great adventure, guys.
I feel like that's in the same vein as some of the no-bag conversations, though, where it's a little more lighthearted. I thought some of the writing was fun. Like, I like Jal being like, just for once, writer, can you not make a joke? This is like a momentous moment for our entire galaxy. Just take it seriously. There's some fun, cutesy stuff
But it's
there.
how it's presented that bothers me. It's like, I don't know. It felt like a forced work party that you go to.
I haven't done the epilogue yet, but that sounds pretty much the same as like the end of or at least going into the ending mission of Mass Effect 3 when you're talking to your different crew members. I really liked that.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have that emotional weight was the problem with me. It just felt dry.
I don't know. I feel like you can it's hard because you've only known these characters for so long in Andromeda, and you're not going to have that same emotional connection in comparison to the trilogy. You know, and
Maybe they should have had something else different for the epilogue.
I mean, think about like
Anyway,
Joe
whatever.
spending like 100 hours or so with this game. Like he spent probably more time playing this game than the entire trilogy. So you could say he spent more time with them.
Oh no, that's false. I played those games.
Well, you replayed them, but I'm saying one time through.
Okay. But the other thing to JV's point is like that structure I actually like. Like Persona games end like that. Like Persona 4 Gold, it's like you finish the game and it gives you that chance to just go and like in a sense, it's even less about the character talking to the character and more about you as a player being like, well, this is my send-off,
Yeah, JV, I'm sorry, you're wrong to criticize
No,
the part.
but
It's
like
fine.
the send-off should be better is my point. It's a weak-ass send-off.
Well, Barbara thought something similar here, saying, my first thought upon completing the game was, where the heck did my brother go? He sort of disappeared at the end. For as long as they kept the writer sibling out of the picture during the main game, I thought they would at least let us discuss our apparently still alive mother, but nothing. I care about Drac, Jal, and everyone else in the Tempest more than my brother, and I find that very strange. Oh. By the way, I played the game a second time. You can finish the main quest shockingly fast if that's all you focus on. I know. If you never go visit your brother before he wakes up, he gets super pissy and asks why you couldn't be bothered. He'll push you away if you try to hug him, which is funny. I liked that the sibling was brought in so much at the end. I thought it was a cool twist to be able to play them for that little section there. Maybe not as much closure as we would expect. But
I just wanted
that
more.
was a neat section.
To me, it felt like, okay, this isn't a character anymore. This is a plot device. And that was kind of a bummer. I did like the idea of playing as him, but like when it started, but where it led to, I was just like, oh, well, he's just going to be strapped to a chair and scream in pain a lot.
You've got to help me. This Archon's so evil.
That is something I forgot to bring up about the memory. The memory things is that your mom is alive
somewhere in Milky Way. Or?
No, you find her. So part of the way that arc works is that like your dad basically like was so into developing AI because he wanted to be able to like work with the body and heal things. So what he ended up doing is like when your mom was sort of at this like terminal phase of her disease, he puts her in cryosleep under a different name, so she's not under Ellen Ryder or whatever. And that's what you find out as sort of the last piece of the last memory is that you find out the name that she's under. So you can't go wake her up or talk to her, like she's still in like near death. But the idea is like hopefully after a certain amount of time in Andromeda, after Sam has learned whatever advances or somehow. The idea is you'd be able to eventually like thaw her out and heal her.
Gotcha.
So she's still around.
I feel like there are more emails to get to talking about the lead up to that final fight. A lot of people like John from Missouri and Cade from Australia, they actually really liked the set piece of like being dropped in with the Nomad and like racing to the grand finale.
That was cool.
And all that.
Yeah.
It was a little bit surprising before that moment where, Sam is taken over by the Archon or whatever, and then like you as Ryder like stumbling your way towards something. I was like, this is very much Mass Effect 3's ending again.
The only thing I didn't like about that lead up sequence was, okay, these are a bunch of voices yelling, and it's supposed to, at least I interpreted it's supposed to like represent like, oh, the bonds I forged with these people. But I was like, I don't recognize these voices. I don't know who these people are. And then like Dunn dies. I'm like, okay, I talked to Dunn like twice. I'm supposed to have a lot of feelings about her crashing the ship into the planet, and I just felt nothing.
Well, they don't have to crash. Mike Kimball writes in, as long as you have 3 Pathfinders at the end of the game, the Hyperion survives. So there's no consequence to disgracing the Asari or sacrificing the Solarian, which when coupled with your own inexperience makes it seem like anyone can do the job. Experience and training be damned. Having 3 trained Pathfinders should mean more than 3 rookies, as well as the rookies being better than nothing. Half the fun I had in the original games was going back to see what could have been done if I'd made a different choice. The results here feel too familiar and similar, regardless of what you do.
That seems to be, in my mind, that's digging a little too much into like headcanon of well, these characters only have so much. It's like in video games, you just have to make the assumption that like your characters are heroes and they can do things that other characters can't, and like that kind of logical jump is just not usually something that I level against a video game sci-fi story.
So the Hyperion didn't crash for you guys.
It did for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
It also did for me, and Dunn died for me, kind of. What happened to me? So like I saw the sequence where Dunn died, because when I finished the game, I did not have the Turian Pathfinder because this is pre-launch. This was fixed by the time the game came out, but I ran into a bug that would not let me access the Turian arc. So I did not have that Pathfinder, which meant that she died. But then once I got the Pathfinder, I went back to the Hyperion and she was just there like standing around. I was like, what are you doing here?
I also want to say that I kind of laughed when she died because like
it was very unceremonious.
Like it literally throws her off screen like a rag doll. It's like,
yeah, it's not. It doesn't quite have the power that
I kind of wish she could have just finished her sentence and then,
So
I don't know.
One thing about the sort of epilogue sequence that I do want to talk about that's interesting, though, is like a tease for future stuff is talking about the fact that the Quarian arc is on the way.
Chris Yu from Illinois is asking for our thoughts on that very topic. Am I insane? I don't believe I saw this.
No, it's hard. It's a panel that's standing next to some folks in the epilogue.
Oh, really?
It's in a computer thing.
Oh, wow. So what does it say exactly?
I mean, it says that basically that the Quarian, it's not just Quarians, right? It's the Quarian and the Hanar and who else? The Volus?
I don't remember all of them.
Yeah, certainly it's the Quarians, the Hanar and the Volus. And
I bet the Hanar arc is just hopping.
Well, no, I don't know that they all had arcs. I think that it might have been like the Quarians, I think, had their own arc that maybe also had some of these other races on staff.
Okay, it's got a spot down below for the
all the unimportant aliens.
Right.
Well, no, it's kind of in the same way that the Krogans were there to like they didn't get their own like 20,000 people colony ship or whatever. But they're Krogans.
I mean, to me, that obviously that's like, this would actually probably get me to load up the game again if there was like Quarian DLC. If I could run into some Quarians.
Yeah,
I doubt
I
it.
would be into that.
You don't think it's gonna happen?
I think that's an Andromeda 2 thing.
Yeah.
I hope that's the name of the game. Just Andromeda 2.
Come on down.
What was I gonna say? Who did you guys elect for the council?
I chose the Moshae. Moshae?
Yeah.
It's because I'm like, well, you know this galaxy. I hate the idea of
also
just
chose
colonialists
the
coming in,
Moshae.
so just go ahead and run it.
I chose the Krogan because I want to see everything burn.
And you're confident that's going to happen under the Krogan?
I mean, because it's not Keshu's in charge. It's whoever was on the planet.
Really?
Medora, whatever her name was.
I could have sworn it
wasn't Kesh for me. It was the person on the Krogan on New Tachanka.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
I didn't think I had many options. Like for me, I think it was basically just the Moshae and maybe Director Tan or something.
Oh boy.
Or no. Or maybe no, it might have been. I think it was the Moshae and like the Solarian Pathfinder might have been my options or something.
Yeah,
because
Solarian Pathfinder was there for me.
I hadn't when I beat the game and got to that point, there were still like a large chunks of different planets that I just finished later. So.
And I just want to say I'm really glad I chose the Krogan because even though I like that Pathfinder, the new Solarian Pathfinder is also really cool. Like he's a cool dude.
Yeah.
Coolest dude around. It kind of ties into why I chose the Angaran to lead there. Just it ties into the whole idea of how Earth-centric and Milky Way-centric this game is. And I know we've talked about it in almost every game club, but it still continues to bother me. Like, I want it to feel more alien, more bizarre. We should feel less important. It was striking that you see Meridian at the end. It's like, oh, this planet looks like Earth. Of course. There's just something so lame and Earth-centric about, like, well, of course, the most important planet in all of Andromeda looks like the human homeworld because you're playing humans.
Yeah, I think the biggest bummer is that Habitat 7 is like the coolest looking planet in the game, and it's the first one you step foot on.
Also the deadliest.
And the deadliest, and then there's not another planet, at least for me, that was as interesting. And that includes Meridian.
Yeah. There's a revelation that we haven't talked about. Jordan Holmdel says, I love the revelation that the Helios cluster was a petri dish for an incomprehensibly advanced alien race. That's some damn good science fiction. I took Jal on that mission, and his initial reaction was concerning. However, I found the scene where he came to terms with the knowledge to be a powerful scene for that character. That said, I feel like I missed a moment where Ryder learned about the creators of the Remnant and the terraforming network. They're the Jardan, but I don't know how she discovered that information. Can someone on the panel clue me in? I have no idea what they're talking about. Did I miss this?
I missed it.
The Jardan? Anybody?
Yeah, Jardan. They find that out on Meridian, but not real Meridian. What they think is Meridian.
Okay, so when she's like activating the stealth bombers secretly and having them fight the Ket, I remember there's some revelation about like, oh, this has all been manufactured, but I don't remember a name specifically.
I don't remember. Like, I know it's there. I don't remember specifically where it. Again, it's been a little while since I played it.
Sure, and so they are the ancient race that built all the Remnant stuff, the Jardan.
Yeah, and they're the ones that were like doing the genetic experiments with the Angaran, like creating them.
Wait a minute. So did they also create the Ket then?
No, the Ket are like invaders.
Oh, so wait a minute. So the Ket weren't messing with the Angarans genetically? That was the Jardan?
Correct. Yep.
Oh, so it was not the Ket
that I did not get that.
Yeah, the Jardan are the ones that are like basically like using this star cluster like he says as a petri dish and sort of engineering life to live in this area.
Yeah.
And engineering the planets to sort of like, have certain qualities and stuff like that.
I'll be damned.
But then the question that ties into that and the Scourge, that energy thing later is like, it seems like the Jardan were attacked. Like the Scourge is a weapon that was sort of focused on whatever was going on in this cluster.
Okay.
And we don't know for sure. Like, it doesn't seem like it was the Ket that did that. They don't seem to have control over the Scourge either. So there's sort of the Ket who seem to show up later and are attacking and stuff. So
Joe, God bless you for being on this game club. We needed you so desperately. Okay, thank you. Also, so handsome, guys.
Yeah, he is a beautiful man.
It's true. It's true.
This is when we start stroking your head.
It's good.
Let's not go that far.
When we start to see your bony, weird chest. So overall thoughts, Derek wrote in saying, I just don't understand the hate for Andromeda. I don't understand how Dragon Age Inquisition was a critically acclaimed hit, despite being a big, bloated mess of a game, and Mass Effect Andromeda is being almost universally panned, despite being much of what Inquisition was. Except saying the combat's better, he likes the characters better in this game. Do you think that there's anything to that it's of a similar quality to Dragon Age Inquisition, but one people just grabbed onto and dragged through the mud?
I mean, I don't know. It's weird because like I have a lot of issues with Dragon Age Inquisition, but I love the characters in that game so much that I spent like 120 hours with it across 2 or 3 playthroughs, and I don't know what it is. Maybe I've just like changed as like a gamer since like Inquisition came out, or like my threshold for like the bullshit is lower, but like I don't ever want to play this game again. Like I don't hate it. Like I think honestly it's mostly fine. But I don't want to play it anymore.
Yeah.
I think Inquisition and Andromeda do hold similar problems, like these kind of filler side quests where you're doing a lot of fetch quest stuff, but I don't know, like JV said, it had a really, really good cast, and I found the main story also more interesting than Andromeda was for me. So
even as someone who doesn't like fantasy that much, I found the main story compelling.
I enjoyed Inquisition.
Yeah. I wrote this down. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, and it's not to say that I didn't enjoy Andromeda either.
Yeah.
Like I think Joe put it pretty well actually, where the main story stuff was probably the weakest point of the game.
And
there's a
yeah.
lot of other stuff that is incredibly enjoyable.
And in regards to this game club, I feel like 3 out of the 4 at this table prioritize the main story stuff. And so I understand there is a wealth of content out there that we didn't get to that probably would have changed this conversation a lot. So I'm sorry for not doing that as much as Joe did. But when you're just doing that main story quest, it just falls off the rails.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting too, because the main story stuff actually from a just like mission design standpoint feels better and more curated, but just from like a narrative standpoint is worse. Yeah. And as someone who reviewed both Andromeda and Inquisition, I think where Inquisition really shines for me is that even though it has some of the same like quest design problems, is just like, I think the areas you're going to are more interesting, especially for someone who's invested in the Dragon Age world. The idea of like, okay, I'm finally like in Orlais. I'm seeing what this big city's all about. Like, there's a sort of magic of discovery to where you're going that even if some of the it's like, oh, here's a big desert planet, here's a big forest planet or something. There's still some like
there's still some of that.
But you're invested in it in the Dragon Age world in a way that you aren't in Andromeda.
Interesting. I wrote this down repeatedly in all my notes that I took for all episodes of the Game Club. It just comes down to, I think this game is too big. Mm-hmm. I don't think BioWare has nailed open world design yet. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like there's nothing wrong. Just contain it a little bit. I don't think the industry and fans are clamoring for open world experiences as much as these companies think that we are. Mm-hmm. If you can nail it, fantastic. But it's fine. Just scale it down a little bit.
I think there's this false impression that bigger is better.
Totally.
With open world design especially. And I don't think that's right.
I don't know. To play devil's advocate a little bit on this part.
Yeah.
Is that there were many times in Andromeda where I had the same feeling that I have when I'm playing, my favorite open world games, where I look at my quest log and I'm like, man, I want to do that. Like, I want to do that loyalty mission. I want to do that loyalty mission. I want to find out what's going on with that thing. There are, to the issue of like size or bloat, there are also a whole subcategory of additional tasks that I don't really want to do. But even discounting those, there were a lot of missions that I was really interested in following, in the same way that like when you in a big open world game, you just feel that overwhelming, like there's just so much I want to do with rewards that I'm interested in seeing.
But there is just an overwhelming amount of content, I think. And also the way the side quests and missions in general are like categorized in your log is very confusing. Like there was a lot of the time where I was just like, I want to do this, continue this mission, but I have to spend 5 minutes trying to find where it is so I can track it.
Show me where the good stuff is. Lead me to the good stuff, please.
That was kind of infuriating.
Yeah.
And I think Andromeda is like, once you get past the intro, it is overwhelming from the start in a way that stuff like The Witcher and Dragon Age Inquisition isn't, because you're like running face first into several tutorials.
Give you so much. And I mean, even the email stuff, I was just like, oh, I have like 20 emails to read now.
Isn't that fun? Clint Green writes in, and I think he came to a similar conclusion that Joe did ultimately, which is, what I really want to know and what I don't understand about this game is how that despite all of its very real and strong detractors that legitimately turned me off, I still finished the game with 80 hours in single player. Was it the exploration that kept bringing me back? All the planets were reskinned deserts? Was it the combat? It was really tight, but got repetitive towards the end. Was it the story? No, definitely not the story. What the heck is going on here? This game was great, but I can't put my finger on what or why.
Yeah.
It's just an ambiguous thing. I kept coming back to it. I had a positive experience and time with it, but there are so many problems. And that sentiment was by far the consensus of the emails that I got.
Yeah.
It's still Mass Effect, and I would say it's still solid in that way.
On that topic of still Mass Effect, I had the eureka epiphany of this is what this game is. I'm constantly trying to think through analogy, metaphor. It's a real problem. But I realized Mass Effect Andromeda to me is that scene at the end of Mrs. Doubtfire where Robin Williams is running back and forth and then run back to the table and he's got like part of the makeup on and kind of the wig. And it's like, oh, it's kind of like the nanny I remember, but not quite. That's what this game feels like to me.
That is the worst analogy I've
terrible.
ever heard.
Okay, what is Mass Effect Andromeda to you, Joseph Juba?
I mean, you don't need to like frame anything in the context of like dumb comedies.
I know, but like what early 90s comedy does it remind you of?
Yeah, no, exactly. Spaceballs? I don't know.
Beautiful, yeah.
No, I mean, to me, I think the spark of this game is that sense of like camaraderie that develops between your character and the characters surrounding them. There's that sense of freedom in terms of like how you're developing your character, just like from a mechanical systems combat standpoint, but then also from a like narrative level, like how you're developing based on the choices you make. And like these are all things that, even though I hate having to keep adding the qualifier of like it's not as good as the original,
That's fair.
it's not.
Yeah.
But it still does those things. Even if it doesn't do them as well, it still does those things. It still captures that spark of like what I want out of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
So
I cannot thank everybody enough who wrote in to podcast@GameInformer.com. So many great emails. I'm sorry we didn't get to every single one, but I'm sorry if this was more negative than we expected when we locked in plans to do a Mass Effect Andromeda Game Club a long time ago. But I appreciate everybody sticking with us. And be sure to send kind thoughts to Joe. It's at Joe Juba on Twitter, I believe. To thank him for his expertise instead of us running to the table.
Instead of sending me kind thoughts, send unkind thoughts to JV specifically.
Okay.
What?
Sounds
What
fantastic.
did I do?
I agree with that.
Beautiful.
All right.
Everybody at this table, thank you so much. And JV, we did it.
We did
We
it.
don't have to talk
We
about
can-
Mass
we
Effect
can leave.
Andromeda anymore. I'm so happy.
Oh, it's so
sweet.
So happy.
All right, and thanks
Oh, you're
everybody.
sweaty.
So sweaty. Thanks everybody that watched or listened to this episode of GI Game Club and this overall episode of the Game Informer Show. Be sure to tune in next Thursday and we'll have another new episode waiting for you. Bye everybody.
Bye.
Nobody's here, but if you want to know how I feel about Dragon Quest Heroes 2 and Bye Bye Box Boy, Dragon Quest Heroes 2 is okay. Bye Bye Box Boy is very good.